leave that comment alone.
Oh my God.
And welcome to the next episode of the Appalachian Podcast. I'm your host, Billy Riddle. With me is my lovable co-host, the Englishman himself, back for another round, Simon Winch.
Yes, indeed. Here to rip another Band-Aid off. You seem to be bringing me in for these contentious shows. And
This is not planned.
No, it isn't planned, actually.
Because we do, believe it or not, we have a ton of people sitting on deck wanting to come onto this show that doesn't involve contentious political things. We just kind of fell into this and feel the need to just continue it right now as we're
Going with the flow.
going with the flow right now. You got to just run with the hand that got you there. So we certainly appreciate all the new listeners we've had here lately, all the people that have been sending us messages in the past couple of weeks with their support, and just it's been pretty mind-boggling. We're going to go ahead and say that this show is being brought to you by the Rocky Mount Burger Company. You can find them at 467 Franklin Street in Rocky Mount, right across from the Harvester, for everybody who knows where that is. And big fan of the place, have been for the longest time. Usually on Sundays during the football season, that's our go-to place. My wife will send me down there. We'll get her the mushroom and Swiss burger. I'll grab me a plate full of wings and the bacon cheese fries with as much ranch to choke a camel. And we'll come back, and I'll sit there and I'll watch the Red Zone channel, and my fantasy football dreams usually die. But for anybody that hadn't been there, which if you're listening to the show, I doubt you have missed out, it's always a good place to go. It was very lively this evening. We went down there to pregame before this show, and you'll understand why here in a second. We introduce our guest, but yeah, we had a good time, and I always do every time I go in. You're always gonna probably stumble in there and run across a Paul Hall or
You never know.
somebody that nature. So it's a good place. I've always enjoyed it, and
I mean, prime location in downtown Rocky Mount. It's an awesome spot.
Exactly, within walking distance of here. I could stumble home if I needed to.
It's a bit uphill, though, isn't it?
Well, everywhere you go around here is going to be uphill in one direction or another. So
Both ways.
I think I can handle something like that. So we're being joined here today by Bryan Hochstein, and he is the owner and proprietor of the Rocky Mount Burger Company, as well as the Early Inn. And I know a lot of people listening have been anticipating this show, because we're going to get down to and talking, and we'll get to it. Some other things here real quick before we dive into this, but we just wanted to welcome Bryan onto the show and say how much we appreciate his time. So,
Thank you very much, and thank you for the shameless plug. I'll take it.
oh, it's not shameless at all. He paid for our beer tonight. That's reciprocation right there is what we call it.
I believe that was called bribery in old-fashioned terminology.
However you want to slice it, free beer will go a long ways on this show. So we're very, our standards aren't very high. Just a couple of beers here and there, and we'll pretty much shout to them.
What are we drinking here?
Well, I'm drinking that. I've never had this before. It is I'm not quite sure whether I should say this. Black. Is it Butte or Butt?
I'm going to go with Butte.
Let's go with Butte because it sounds a little bit better. Black Butte Porter. And it's absolutely delightful.
Now, myself, I am drinking Budweiser because that's Old Faithful to me. I typically like a variety. The craft beers I do enjoy, like the German beers. That being said, if I start drinking Budweiser and I start going to the craft beers, it's just going to destroy my stomach, and it's going to be a bad evening. It's kind of like the liquor before beer kind of phrase.
Grain and grape.
The only beer I can drink after starting off with Budweiser is Yingling, and we have Amos Denton to thank for that one, because every time I go up there, I'll take two deuces of Budweiser, 2 deuces of Yingling for him. Been doing it. That's a tradition. Every time I go visit him for the past 20 years, that's what I do. And I run out of the Budweiser and start drinking.
Yeah, if my cabin isn't stocked with Yingling for the pit stop of the Denton Mockingbird Road crew, I get in big trouble. So, yeah, I've been polluted with Yingling too.
Is 2 deuces like a double entendre or something?
Definitely. I think that's how it goes. Let's see.
It's go big or go home, right?
Well, hey, while we're mentioning Amos, go ahead and plug him in here. Blackwater Custom Building and Woodworks. Get in touch with him for anything you need from construction work. Remodeling from time to time if he's got the time for it. But if you want something really custom made, and I'm talking, you've got the craziest idea you could possibly think of. I want to turn a log I found in the woods into a snake cane or something. Amos has got to do it. So.
He's going to do it with wood for sure. He actually built my in-laws' house, and it is absolutely stunning. I mean, it was done to the highest possible standard, and I don't have anyone else work on my property, so that should speak volumes.
Yeah, I built my railing out here, and we're still waiting on some of the top boards for that railing, Amos. If you actually listen to this episode, swing on down here. It's been a few months now, and I did name my son kind of after you, so I'd appreciate if you'd come on down here and finish putting those last 3 boards up. It'd go a long ways for brownie points for my wife, which I have completely depleted here in the past few months. So if you're listening, I'm sure you will, because Simon's on this episode. Just keep that in mind. And I also wanted to do one more shout out. Photography by Beth Preston. I think she's a Callaway.
She is. She's up close near the Chaos Brewery.
We did. We actually went and got some family portraits done here for our Christmas cards a couple days ago, right there behind the elementary school, essentially. I think is it the Methodist church? Whatever the brick church is there on the left. We went there.
That's the Methodist church. Oh, no, that's the
Presbyterian.
The Presbyterian
yes.
church.
So either way, if she can make me look good, which she did, I'm going to tell you what, anybody out there, go check her out. She does a great job. She's really personable. She gets along with your kids. She can make them smile. And we appreciate everything she does for us, because she's, came and taken quite a few of our photos before, and we like keeping it local. So a couple Callaway folks we want to throw out there. Also wanted to tell everybody that I know we're a little behind on our Black Lives Matter episode part 2. For anybody that's still checking to see when it's going to come out, we've still got it there. But you can go on our Patreon page and you can listen to that show in its entirety for only $3 a month. You'll be supporting us, and you can hear all of our shows that haven't been released yet, including the Abe Naff show that's out there right now. And that was great, talking about a lot of the local athletes from this area that have went on to do big things. A lot of the players that he had under his wing at Ferrum College, including Eric Owens and Billy Wagner, who is up for the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame once again this year. So go check those shows out. It's $3 a month. You're supporting us. You're supporting local. And like I said, you get that content a little bit earlier than anybody else. And hopefully here in the next few weeks, few months, we'll start getting some more subscriber-only content in there for the people that do pay. We're kind of going in a little transition here. We've kind of been thrown off into some different directions and stuff. But as soon as me and Simon can kind of take a breath from everything we've been doing, maybe we can go in there and do some 30-minute, 40-minute rants here and there that subscribers can get.
Well, we don't rant, Billy.
Well, we can. For the right price, we can.
I believe
and $3 a month. I mean, that's a cup of coffee. That's a half a cup of coffee at Starbucks. Or,
You might be onto something. It may be a 30-minute rant, a fest.
Well, kind of going back to our the last thing, or the last, I don't want to call it a podcast, because after the last town council meeting, and this is how I kind of want to go from here, we were supposed to come back here and do like a 30 to 45-minute reaction to it, and Simon and I, unfortunately, got lost between the town council building and my house and found our way to Ippy's.
I don't know, my arm got twisted, and it had something to do with a third-party phone call.
Well, you know what? We were, as people of the community, we have to answer those calls, and when we're called upon. And so thanks, Jody and Tommy, for bringing us down there and hanging out. And we got to have some good conversation and drink a couple of beers. So Simon didn't get to make that. So I came on here and talked for 35 minutes, and I want to let you know that is very difficult. It's one thing to have somebody here you can go back and forth on. I was kind of proud of myself that I actually made it 35 minutes. Probably drug it out a little bit too much. Well, that being said, I appreciate everybody that tuned in, because, once again, the numbers are just going off the charts as far as people tuning in here. And I'm glad we've started to get the local community kind of on board and listening to us, because that's what we did all this for.
Where did we get with the numbers on the Holland show? Because that one really surprised me. It came in number 4 or something crazy.
It's already up to number 2, if I'm not mistaken, in a week and a half. Yeah, so the Philip Bain show went straight to number 1 in one day.
That was 12 hours.
Yeah, and the Holland show went to number 2 in about a week. And I'm telling you, we've been doing this for a year and a half now, and I have no doubts that today's show is probably going to jump right up there.
I suspect it is. No pressure, Brian. No pressure.
None at all.
Okay.
So, Simon, since you weren't here for that, before we jump into this, because when I say we're going to jump into this, we are jumping off the diving board head first into a giant pile of things that we really need you to pay attention for. We're going to try to make it fun for you as well. But what was your reaction from the town council meeting? And Bryan, you can also chip in because you also were there as well. What was your reaction from the town council meeting we attended last week?
I think it was quite sedate the way it went forward. I think there was a bit of brinksmanship with how the council ultimately conveyed the land to the Morris Hotel. So there was a little bit of theatrical there, but I think with the pressure that the show brought, I don't think they had any option other than to convey the land, and this, the very next day resulted in, the posters coming down, the lights coming on, and yet a full-on work crew getting at it. So I only see a positive thing really that came from us. We didn't make an impact at the meeting, but I think the outcome from the show made the result in that favour. So
I'd like to think so.
I'd like to think so. I think Philip put a very good case across, and that they've done the right thing, and rightly so. So I commend them for conveying the property over to the Morris Hotel. It's the right thing to do. Get this project moving forward, and let's reap the rewards of 40 to 50 new positions and employment being created as a result. So yeah, great job.
And a rising tide raises all ships. So I think all the businesses downtown will benefit from that hotel. And I also wanted to thank everybody that came up to Simon and I that night and reached out and thanked us. And even if you didn't thank us and you were a little irritated at our language, I wasn't taking a shot at you. I was just kind of trying to make a joke that we do cuss on this show from time to time because we get passionate about it. And hey, the FCC can't say anything to us. So.
Yeah, I'm a sailor, so
I'm a combat veteran, so we speak in languages. It's a little more en français than most.
Law.
3 years of French. That's one of the only few words I can say.
I've got plenty, but that's another story in its entirety.
But thank everybody for coming out, and especially all the messages we've gotten. In the meantime, all the support. And I know some people have different opinions. Some people aren't very happy with some of the things we've said. But hey, look, we're not here. This is not a political thing. We brought Philip on the show to talk about the hotel only. We didn't even go into his campaign until about the last 10 minutes when we just mentioned it. We're not here.
I didn't even know that he was a candidate, which actually made things significantly worse with the collusion of certain town council. Now, whether that was councillors or administration, but someone from the town council was colluding with the local press to the detriment with a hatchet job done on Philip Bain. Now, that to me, had I known, I would probably have gone off the deep end and probably been recorded with more F-bombs going off. So, it's a good thing and a bad thing that it didn't come out and that I didn't know. But, when you consider that collusion is going on, that kind of behaviour is totally unacceptable from any governing body, because they're only concerned with their interests, and that's part of the problem. So, and we're going to be going on to that, I'm sure, later in this show. But yeah, it was the outcome was perfect.
Yeah, and credit where credit is due. I'm glad that they decided to go ahead, like you said, and go ahead and pass that on through. And
well, there were many attempts to try and table it, so I'm not going to swing round and say whether that was theatrics or not. But there were several individuals there that were looking to table it. Now, tabling is just insidious. Why on earth would you look to table this matter when it's been dragged out over so long? It just tells me that was either theatrics or there's some people in there that just don't have the ability to make a decision, which is even more alarming. So, it does open up an issue that I think is going to go forward unless it's corrected. Hey.
And I also want to make this very clear to anybody listening. never once have I. It even goes back to the show with the mayoral candidate Holland Purdue. Never once did we ask him or Philip what their political affiliation is. I don't know if they're Democrats, Republicans. Couldn't care less. We're just here for a platform, and you make the decision yourself. I think that's part of the biggest problem in this entire country with politics is they have that D or R next to their name, and people just go down ballot and vote without even paying any attention to who they're voting for. I couldn't care less what their position is.
Well, in local politics, that's a really. I mean, that's just. I hate to use the word ignorant, but you've got to look, particularly with local politics, how much you can be affected more by local politics than you can by state politics or regional or national politics. We can command the situation on our doorsteps by electing the right people with the right ethics and integrity, and that can't be done as much as we don't have the same effects in Richmond or in DC, but here we do. So just going down, just because you're a Democrat or you're a Republican, just going down the box, check. That doesn't serve the purpose because we're looking for people of integrity to serve their community locally, and that isn't a hardship. You shouldn't just be going, well, I'm a blue dog Democrat and my father did this, my grandfather voted Democrat, my great grandfather was a Democrat, blah 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 blah. Sorry. That doesn't work in local politics. We need the right people in the right job, looking after the community and the community's best interests.
Yes, and we're not here. We're not working for any specific candidate, and we're not working in favor of any. We're here to offer a platform. Now, we may like or dislike somebody, depending on what the case may be, but that's not why we're here, and we're not really projecting that. We just want to get the information out there, and we want people to decide for themselves. And I mean, maybe at some point in time, I will say I do endorse Philip Bain. I think he's a phenomenal individual. I think he's got what it takes to get in there and figure out some of the issues we've had with the town, and I think he's passionate about it. And I'll say the same about Ben Mullins. I think that after having a conversation with him after the town council meeting, he certainly has the town in his best interest, and like me, he's a young father who has a lot of stake in the game. His kids are going to grow up here, and he, like me, wants his kids to stick around and to make this town a better place. So, although we're not in the game of pushing or pulling, we want to give everybody the opportunity to come on here. And that's not to say we might not endorse every single town candidate for council that comes on here. You just have to come on here and be heard. Yes, put it out here, and we're going to like you, we're going to not like you, but
I mean, I've said it again and again and again. Be critical thinkers.
Yes.
And that's all we ask. And then take your constitutional responsibility and duty to vote.
Yes.
Is that too much to ask?
No.
Hell no.
And, off of that, Bryan, I mean, do you have any reaction from that town council meeting? Because you were there, and I know you said you'd planned on speaking, but decided not to after I guess I spoke or whatever. Or no, for whatever reason.
Outcome.
Yeah, it was the outcome or whatever. So I was just curious if maybe you had any thoughts on it you'd like to interject here with.
Well, first, I thought the council meeting went really well. I was very pleased with the vote on 325 Franklin. And, I did not speak. I had planned to. I had something to say. I think it's pretty important. Maybe we'll cover it tonight. But I really think theatrics were involved. Mm-hmm. I went the night before. They had to open up to the public before they went into closed session. So I filmed that, and the demeanor was far more negative. And then
tell, expand.
You could just tell. I mean, the body language, the mannerisms. When they asked me to leave, I guess I didn't get the clue the first time they asked. It's on film. But anyway, so when I did leave, I left and I kind of said, okay, this isn't going to go well. And then Tuesday's meeting happened, and it was a 180. And I was very glad to see it. And so therefore I kind of withheld. Billy, I think what you said just hit the nail on the head. And from that standpoint, it was, let's not sour the mood. And Philip was going to speak as well. And he also said, it wasn't,
the outcome was what it was.
And it really needed to happen. This was the nighttime. Part, I think it was a ninth time.
Ninth time. So it had been tabled 8 times previously.
And there had been, and so when they keep asking questions like, how many square feet is it? I was at the last town meeting and that came up. I was like, so the theatrics, I think we could do without. But then
it's obstruction.
But this is where I hope the new town council, whatever it be, comes in, that they actually pay attention and they know the answers to the questions before they ask them. And in many cases, like, most lawyers will say, never ask a question you don't know the answer to. Well, they were asking these questions. I was like, wait, I actually heard this question before.
I thought Philip's retort was I went out and did it the old-fashioned way and used my tape measure. Someone said the what was it?
The GIS.
The GIS was 4,000 square feet, and then Philip came in and said, well, I actually did it the old-fashioned way, used the tape measure, it's about 2,000 square feet. I mean, that to be at that stage on the 9th hearing of that case, and they don't know the square footage of this postage stamp piece of land that they can do nothing with, it just goes to show it doesn't hold them in good light. I'll leave it at that for now.
Well, and I learned something at that meeting where Philip had bought another parcel. There was a car wash behind him, and I guess he'd bought and closed on the property. So, I mean, it just makes perfect sense.
Of course,
and
it
this
does.
is, what we want down in downtown. We want more occupation, restaurants, retail, and jobs. Right.
Yeah.
But then we're going to start seeing foot traffic, and foot traffic breeds more foot traffic, and then it'll just
it's going to explode. It's going to be fantastic when it does kick off. I hope they can all rest on their laurels and say, what took us so long? What took us so long?
Well, like I said, like I mentioned in my speech, and I had a, honestly, kind of. To go along with Bryan and Philip as well, I had a 3-page speech that had been written out that I took about an hour and a half to think about and write and get absolutely correct. And I walked up there and I just put it right in my pocket and just spoke straight from the heart. I don't, it was a little nerve wracking. I'm not much of a public speaker. This is a whole different ball game. I can sit here with a beer in my hand and talk back and forth with somebody amicably, but,
a little bit of false advertising there. I don't see a beer in your hand.
Well, okay.
There we go.
That's more like it.
But no, you go to Floyd, and that was one of my points. Go to Floyd, which is a town that has a fraction, or the county has a fraction of what Franklin County does. And let's not pretend Franklin County and Rocky Mount aren't connected. We very much are. Floyd has a fraction. It's also more isolated. No real major highways going into there. You've got a 2-lane coming down Route 8 from Christiansburg and 81, and you've got 221 coming up from Roanoke heading into Hillsville, and that's about it. Any other way you're getting into Floyd County or the town, you're going up, windy back roads that tractor trailers have no business being on. I mean, that's the kind of...
How many stoplights?
One.
There you go.
The 1 4-way intersection. And I go through there for work a lot of times, home on Thursday and Friday evenings, and the downtown area is jammed. There are people walking everywhere. They're going from Dogtown Pizza Joint, which I highly recommend if you've never been there to eat. Good music, good food. Going to Dogtown back and forth to the other restaurants. They're going into shops. They're spending money. People are talking. They're being a community, and that's what's most important. It's not just the commerce that's going on. It's being around your community and finding out, who they are and why they're there, and talking. And
the basis of that success, and I've been up to Floyd several times. The basis of that success on a Friday night and over the weekends has been music. And we're going to come on to this subject very quickly.
How many local Franklin County musicians have played at the General Store?
Every single one of them that I know of.
And then...
Pretty much.
Wouldn't it be cool to see them on the Harvester stage?
Wouldn't it just? Where did that get lost?
And so I guess if you don't know by now what we're going to be talking about, and we're going to be talking about a few other things too, but the Harvester is our main focal point for this show. And before we get into this, I just want to... I've had a lot of people hit me up about this and a lot in support of what we're doing to be able to talk about this. Some think we're going to take this on a negative path. Look, it's not a negative path we're taking it on. We're just providing what we have. We're providing the paperwork, we're providing the documentation, and we're calling balls and strikes as we see it. Now, the Harvester is a phenomenal concept. I think the idea of having it here, I think putting it where they put it at in downtown, and having the ability to bring in some big acts that, have sold out massive venues in the past, and getting them people here to Rocky Mount, I think it's a phenomenal idea. The execution, in my opinion, has been less than satisfactory. And for me, I'm just old slack-jaw redneck. My biggest pet peeves with the Harvester are very simple things, like going to see Government Mule there and them not having a pit section, having seats everywhere. That's a band that you want to go there and you want to dance around to. You don't need seats everywhere. Small, minute things like that. I'm not a fan of any government entity having anything to do with something that should be private. So that's a huge issue in my mind. And the straw that really broke my camel back was during COVID doing the vaccine passports. I understand you're going to say, that was on some of the musicians. Well, there were a ton of musicians out there that absolutely were against that as well, and would have probably gladly came in here and taken your business and not required something like that. So that's a cop out. I don't want to hear about that.
Particularly now with some of the medical evidence
come
that's
out
been
after
coming
the
out.
fact. So
Yeah.
I mean, but
let's not go down that road.
No, neither here nor there. That was just one of the things that really
Off the cliff we go.
How many rabbit holes do we have?
Oh yeah,
we're not going to go down that one. But that one really did it in for me, because
par five.
This is a community that's not really going to adhere to those mean Mr. Mustache tactics, if you know what I mean, where you're showing your papers. So you essentially cut out a big chunk of this community from even be able to go and enjoy a place that their tax dollars are going to fund. So,
well, the structure. We're going to come into the structure, and this is where Brian's going to come in, because he's got an in-depth knowledge of the very convoluted structure of how this particular harvester operates. And say it's convoluted is a very polite way of saying there's misdirection here. And we need to address some of that. But, Brian's going to come in and explain many things, and we're going to give him pretty much an open forum with regards to how this structure is set up. And I want to be the first one to say this venture is going to lead to the success and growth of Rocky Mount. We are not here to swing round and say, close it down, shut it down, it's a money pit, it's going down the hole. That is absolutely the worst possible outcome that could happen to the harvester. The harvester needs its management structure turned around, it needs to strive, and it needs to be profitable.
Yeah, it's here.
And it needs to be translucent, which it currently isn't. Yeah,
it's here, and it does have a little bit of a reputation. And what I want to see happen is for that reputation to help thrive and build up, like I said earlier, a rising tide raises all ships. I think the Harvester being a success helps the burger company be a success. It helps the Early Inn, which Bryan also owns, to be a success.
It helps the coffee shop. It's going to help the hotel.
Absolutely.
It's going to help. Absolutely. It's going to be the driving force behind increased foot traffic and just a phenomenal growth in downtown Rocky Mount. And if people don't see that, get on board, because it's not going away.
Yes.
And we do not want it to go away. We want to get it back on track, back on the right path with some suggestions, perhaps with competence,
yes. Resolutions,
with management that isn't looking at the public coffer and the bottomless pit of taxpayers' dollars. It's still got to be a viable commercial entity. And the way that they're treating it currently, quite frankly, is insufficient.
So with all that being said, Bryan, just kind of give the listeners out here just a little bit of your background, why you decided onto Rocky Mount, why you came here, what your views are of the town, why you opened a business here, and things like that, just so people can kind of get an understanding of why this is such a passion project for you.
All right. Well, thank you very much for having me. My name is Bryan, and I'm not sure. Well, let me just start from the beginning. I had a software firm called Quick Hire. Started with my partner with the Early Inn and another partner. We did federal hiring. and we were fortunate enough to be acquired by Monster.com. Not shortly, 2.5 years after the acquisition, I moved on and had always wanted to get into the hospitality industry. Restaurants, bed and breakfast. My parents live in Booth Bay Harbor, Maine, tourist town. It was great. My kids went to preschool with the former general manager of the Harvester, Gary Jackson. He had moved down to the area. He had run a music venue, or book the talent, if you will, for a popular music venue in DC, and we were friends. And so he actually invited me to town. So for all that's going on, before you blame me for anything, you should blame Mr. Jackson, because he's the one that introduced me to Rocky Mount. Place is beautiful. You drive, especially this time of year, you're on the road, you hit some vistas. I mean, it's gorgeous. The people are fantastic. It's a very warm, lovely place. So anyway, the Harvester was not yet ready to be opened, and across the street from it was Pyramid Pizza.
I remember vaguely that. I don't think I ever went there, but I do remember it.
And it was closed at the time, but it had a for sale by owner sign in it, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be it. So bought the pizza place and was looking to do a restaurant. First restaurant was Bootlegger's Cafe. I'm going to say from the beginning, great concept. You kind of alluded to it. Right idea, wrong execution. Bootlegger's Cafe, I would say we were consistently inconsistent, and that was a problem. People from out of town loved it, but people in town were a little more critical, and we made a mistake. And one of the lessons in life I learned from federal government is that you do what the customer says. And so in this case, it was time to shut it down after 2 years. But anyway, came the Harvester, had made some big promises. They were to do 175 shows a year. They were to have 40 to 50,000 ticket goers in year one. That was to go up to 75,000 by year 5. In year 5, I think they did 30,000. They missed the bottom end. I mean, and these were conservative projections, and this is really where things just didn't go right. So,
gee, Simon, you
Sorry, I'm. It was the fridge. And
just getting the beers. So, anyway, I keep going down rabbit holes. So, what was the question again?
Well, I was just kind of want to get a little bit of your history here in Rocky Mount, and kind of why you decided to.
So it was a bucket list item. I thought the Harvester was going to be a great ground floor opportunity. It was going to bring people in. The initial goal was to basically sell tickets to 80% sell 80% of the tickets to people from outside of the county. And that was a big push. And so with the ticket projections, the reason the Bootleggers theme and all kind of resonated with out-of-towners.
Who presented these figures, just as a matter of interest?
The former general manager, Gary Jackson.
Okay.
So it was a big, it was a big miss. I mean, overpromise, underdeliver. When you do 15,000 in year one, and you're supposed to do 40 to 50 in year one, that's a
significant.
It's hard to,
And at what point, you see, when you're coming down with those sort of numbers, and you've stated that publicly, and you've missed significantly, at what point was the management questioned?
Into the second year. I mean, it was like, okay, this is not. And I had already fired my first manager of the restaurant in hopes to get it back on track, but the damage was done there too.
Yeah.
So it's it leaves a sour taste in your mouth because.
Did the town respond? When I say the town, I'm referring to a town council and administration, and maybe the management of the Harvester itself. Did they respond in any way to underperforming, or did they make any corrective actions that you saw as a positive step?
No. I mean, that I was, just a sacrificial lamb, if you will. I don't know how you say it. It's just
but you're a private venture with your money,
right? But if you go back and you look through the articles, The former assistant town manager was out there saying, we're doing 180 shows a year. And I'm like, no, you're not. I got 2 reams of documents here. No, you're not even close.
So and this mismanagement was of public note, I'm assuming.
What do you mean by public note?
It was there. It is documented that he said 180.
Oh yeah, it's in the Roanoke Times articles.
So it's all there.
And they won like economic development, for small governments, economic development awards. And they were out there doing the dog and pony, but
weren't delivering.
And I'm going to say this, so that we keep this on the up and up. I love the Harvester. I went to a show.
I think we all do.
I went to the Eli Young show with my family. It's a freaking phenomenal venue. But like Eli Young, I don't know what the ticket sales were. There were like 100 people there. It should have been sold out.
Yeah.
That was this year. But you go in, I've got all the ticket sales from pre-COVID. It's, when you really look at it, it's the Harvester is a success in name only because you have to be successful in multiple stages. And it's like ticket sales, profitability.
Yeah.
These are things. So even if you're not going to make money, just be honest about it and be open. And then when we talk about things like, the general store down in Floyd, bringing in a lot of Franklin County musicians, those people would probably appreciate playing to a home audience. And the home audience would probably respond
by supporting it
really generously too.
I'm sure it would.
And you don't have to have the same ticket prices either. You can bring it in and drop ticket prices for local acts and still fill the place up, make money off booze, because Lord knows we drink around here. I mean, there's different ways to be able to incorporate the ability to make a profit. You're not gonna sell the same tickets to Dwight Yoakam as you are to the Harwell Grice band and Josh Grice. He's typically, playing music on the corner of Williamson and Hirschberger.
But look at the Harwell Grice band and our man Josh. I mean, absolutely fantastic performance.
Can work a crowd.
And my goodness, is that music not just superb? And I take my hat off to that band. I want to, when they're coming up, playing at the Curse, we all want to go there. Well, yeah, you got to watch Josh every now and again, Yeah. But
I love it, Josh.
That should be, they should have open access to be able to perform there. We should be seeing, and I've worked, how do I put this without being a complete git? I've worked in Laurel Canyon in Los Angeles.
Excuse me.
And a small recording studio that we set up. And it was all about the buzz. But what happened was, and the thing in LA, and I can't stand California, let me tell you, but the thing in LA was Thursday night was called Little Friday. And Thursday night was when it kicked off. So you've got to create these things, and sometimes you're running on the back of somebody else's coattails, but that's no big problem because what do they say about imitation?
Flattery.
It's flattery, absolutely. So why the Harvester isn't open more often with local acts that we can support, and get a little Friday going on a Thursday night, roll into Friday, let's have a big act on Saturday. Or even do a multi-act 2 or 3 day, and you're going to pull in crowds from multiple states that benefits everybody. We've got to. I think they've been way too obtuse with how they've been looking to book acts and open it up, not just to out of state people, but from local people, and they've completely missed. They it's a miss.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Bring in the locals.
Bring in the locals. These are the guys. You should be looking at the locals as your bread and butter.
Well, you're the beginning of the crooked road. That's what you market yourself as, and crooked road.
Yeah, but and you've had a lot of comments. I think back and forth, and there was a comment on the podcast page, and it struck a chord, and I thought, oh, that's awful. And this is the crookedest little town on the crooked road. Now, that reputation, that saddens me immensely because that reputation is very hard to turn around.
Well, and it begs the need for transparency.
Very much so. This is what we're looking for throughout.
And although the harvester is set up as a for-profit LLC, and that was in order to get the tax credits, it was supported wholly by the town government. The town, according to the finances from them, lost $450,000 on average per year.
I mean, how do you sustain a business like that in private hands? You don't. The bank will close you down.
Exactly. And so, but the difference is I opened a restaurant. My partner and I opened the inn. We spent our money.
Right.
We had real
you got
money
skin in the game.
When you did the harvester, they spent your money. There's a big difference. There's no risk.
Huge difference. This is what we want to get at. Explain to everyone in the easiest terms possible without making the purple smoke come out the back of the head, how the structure of the harvester is set up, because you mentioned something earlier during my first beer, I may add, about the Economic Development Fund and how that is an integral part of how the harvester functions. I'd like to know a little bit more about how it's set up corporately to obtain tax credits, but then still be accessible to the honeypot of the taxpayers, being the never-ending supply of funds that they just don't appear to be able to operate in a profitable fashion, because it's very easy for them to swing round and say, well, we'll cover it with taxpayer money. You know what? No, you bloody won't.
So it is convoluted. It was intentionally designed to be, very complicated. So I don't know if I can answer the question as succinctly as you want, but
have at it.
At somewhere, the town got the notion that they could apply and receive historic rehabilitation tax credits.
On what basis?
So the state has a program, and there's, forgive me, the state has a program for if you go in and rehabilitate a historic property, then you can receive up to 25% of the renovation in what's known as historic tax credits.
Okay, fantastic.
So
that's an incentive. I love it.
Okay.
However,
and then there's a tag along. The states have a relationship with the National Park Service. And if you follow the guidelines from Department of Interior, and the state says that you did during the renovation, that you complied with all the historic blah, 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 then the feds will kick in 20% of the renovation in federal tax credits. Now,
these are significant advantages.
Yes, because according to the FOIAs, the town spent about roughly $3 million. So 45%.
That's a significant investment of a town population of
roughly under 5,000.
Okay, so that's significant, but carry on.
Well, you have these tax credits. Tax credits can only be used if you have taxable income.
There's the kicker.
So it is a kicker because, one, a municipality doesn't have income like you and I do, and we file our taxes. So that's why they created the harvester as a for-profit entity. Okay,
so that explains why that was set up.
But
I like that first layer. That was beautifully explained. Nice one.
A nice, easy, not to what we're going to talk about. But then, okay, so you've got the tax credits. But here's the problem. According to the IRS, and
my favorite.
And according to the the Virginia Department of Historic Resources, you cannot sell tax credits. But the whole premise.
But what's the implication of not? What's the implication of not selling tax credits? I don't quite grasp the implication.
So the incentive for you to rehabilitate a building is that they are going to give you tax credits that you would then use. You'd have an expiration. I believe in this case it's 10 years, in which, as you are a profitable entity, you can then write off your taxes by using tax credits. And so when you file your state taxes, you apply the state tax credits. And when you have your federal taxes, you apply the federal.
Similar to an accrual type.
But
Okay.
But that's the incentive.
Okay, yeah.
And you're not allowed to sell them. But I've got, I think it's 13 articles in the Roanoke Times in which there's a line, and it says, we plan to sell tax credits in order to pay for or in order to raise $1 million to pay for the harvester.
So this is an accounting bookkeeper shell game.
It is. And it's and a very convoluted one. So,
Well, it has to be convoluted because us simpletons don't need to be the guys that can expose it.
So give me 1 second. I'm going through my reams of paper here.
Yeah, that's fine. And I want people that are listening to understand this isn't, we're on here today. It's not a bunch of hearsay. Like Bryan is very well researched. He has a file folder, probably 6 inches, multiple files, 6 to 8 inches
About
thick.
2 reams worth.
Yes, of a FOIA request, which for anybody who doesn't know is Freedom of Information Act. Things that are public record that you can get. And if anybody wants to see any of this stuff, I'm sure he'd be gracious enough to let us print it out or scan it, and we can upload it right here to the podcast page. This is all things that we have in front of us.
I'm going to hold back on that only because I'd like the IRS to pay me.
Okay.
So,
Well, you've
Take our word for it, though. It's all sitting right here in front of us. We've seen the paperwork.
Yeah, we've got half a tree on the desk here.
So if I look at just these are the articles. In 2013, January 31st, the headline in the Roanoke Times was Rocky Mount proceeding with Performance Center. And the quote, Hankins said money from foundations or sources such as Virginia Tobacco Commission could cover some costs, and county officials believe historic tax credits will be a source of significant funding for renovating the building completed in 1946.
Now, I've got no problem with the town being creative with the taxpayer not footing the bill for a renovation, particularly with the harvester in mind, with a performing centre. That to me is frugally and financially prudent.
It is, but you have this caveat, or not even a caveat, you have this regulation. You can't sell tax credits.
Right. Now, I think the understanding of not selling tax credits is it's just it's another concept that may need some in-depth explanation. Whether we want to go down that road, I don't know. But I'm happy to take your word for it that it's a problem.
Yeah. Let me see if I have. So I FOIA'd several agencies, and one of them was the Department of Historic Resources. And on their frequently asked questions, can you sell tax credits? And they're like, nope.
Absolutely not.
But they leave a caveat that investors can create a syndicate in which multiple parties can invest in the rehabilitation, and then they can decide what to do with the tax credits.
That's some pretty grey, foggy ground right there.
Yeah, well, and it gets better.
Oh, I bet it does.
So, this is the chart for the Performance Center project. This was, I found it in what is called the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. It was on before the town of Rocky Mount changed its website. It was easily discoverable, like the budget.
Yeah, not so much now.
So that is a flow chart right there that we can share.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And this flow chart, we'll put this one on the page for anybody that's interested, because it's basically encompassing that there is 7 to 8 different entities all rolled into one just in support of the harvester.
Yeah, so the town of Rocky Mount, under the advice of council, created an economic development authority. And essentially the first project the EDA created, or the first project it undertook, was the building of the harvester. And so you have the town of Rocky Mount over here, and then the next biggie is the EDA, and then it starts getting into the Performance Center manager, the Performance Center SCP, the Performance Center building, Performance Center tenant, Performance Center development, and then way down here, the Performance Center, the Harvester Performance Center.
Oh, it finally gets to the harvester mentioning it by name.
And then you got some ancillary LLCs involved. CB Performance Center LLC, which is tied to Carter Bank and Trust. And then you have this one called Preservation 2014 LLC. And this was the one that threw me off. It took me a long time to even figure out what its involvement was. And it actually ended up through both FOIAs and Google searches, bringing me to the Securities and Exchange Commission. And it's I don't even know if I can explain it without pictorial representation. But essentially, Preservation 2014 is related by the same lawyer and owner or director, I guess, as a company called Virginia Preservation 2014. And Virginia Preservation 2014 was listed on the Securities and Exchange Commission as a security in which investors would be allocated tax credits.
So the SEC are dealing with tax credits. Wow, this goes beyond my mental capacity. I'll ask you one question. I don't want to throw your thread here. How many LLCs do you have running the burger company?
Well, it's an S corp. So, but one.
One. How many LLCs do you have running the early in?
Oh, that number is even bigger. It's one.
All right. I just wanted to make that point abundantly clear that there's something going on here that doesn't pass the sniff test. I think it's as simple as that.
Well, that was my first original thought. Like I said, all this kind of stuff is way, way over my head. And we kind of wanted to, bring this on board to maybe help the average citizen kind of understand it. When I originally looked at it, my mind was blown. I was like, how could anybody, with my mental capacity be able to look at this? And
well, we're simpletons. You got to remember, we're simpletons.
Exactly. And fortunately for Bryan here, he's done the work, and he can help explain it as best as possible. But 7 entities all wrote into one. It's
it's more than 7.
Well,
it's way more than 7.
And actually, let me go back to. No, you're good. You can have that. When you come to, let's see, the GIS.
Now, I to a certain extent, when it comes to performing arts, and there's a number of angles that you've got to be particularly cautious with the general public and so forth, but no more cautious than you would have to be running a burger company or an event company and restaurant come sort of boutique hotel as the early inn is. So I'm just absolutely blown away by the complexity of this setup.
So, and as you're looking at that diagram, you'll see some arrows, and there'll be like a lease termination agreement, a contribution agreement, a furniture lease, a security lease. Let's see, they had a master lease. So, and this is one of the areas they got in trouble. So within the tax credits, the owner of the property can lease the building to whoever's going to apply for the tax credits. And it must be a 40-year term. And so the town did that to the EDA for $1 a year for 40 years. But then the EDA went on and leased.
They sublet it.
Or they sublet it. But for the tax credits, there's a limit of 1 lease. You can't. Anyway, they did a double here. So you've got this master lease between the Economic Development Authority and the Performance Center building. And that's another 40-year lease for $1. And then the Performance Center building, LLC, that's the one that popped up in the National Park Service FOIA as being the entity that qualified for the tax credits. For the longest time, we thought it was Performance Center SCP because of Preservation 2014 and how 2014 with the same owners related to Virginia Preservation 2014 LLC popped up on the SEC website. Really interesting, but now I'm going down a rabbit hole.
Let's avoid the rabbit hole. I think we can safely say that the complexity of this structure, it does beg the question, what are you hiding?
Oh, absolutely.
So I'm kind of happy to leave it at that because I know there's so many other topics that we can discuss here.
But if I could,
Please do.
the Harvester was set up as a for-profit entity, as were all of these other LLCs. So there must be tax returns.
Where are they on all of them?
And all of these buildings, all of
LLCs.
these LLCs, the registered agent resides at 345 Donald Avenue, which
We know where that is.
345 Donald is the town municipal building. And yet somehow we can't FOIA anything from any of these LLCs because they're for-profit entities. They're completely separate and private.
That would be by design, what one has to say.
Is that if you're a for-profit entity, but you're also receiving funds from the town, from the local government, how does that all tie in, and how are we not able to see the public records for all this kind of stuff?
It's a good question, and I would love town council. I'd love the town administration. I would love to know who even the officers of the Harvester and any one of these LLCs are. They've got to have, they've got to have documentation that shows who the officers are, who the equity holders are, tax returns.
So you've made these FOIA requests, and what's the excuse for not issuing the information to you?
In each case, it comes back as it's an entity, private entity under the laws of Virginia.
That happens to be located at the town council premises.
Oh, yeah. It doesn't pass the sniff test.
No, absolutely not.
But-
So it's like we've already said it. It's a shell game. Something's up.
Oh, something is up. And it comes out when the town spends $450,000 a year to prop up an organization that is also losing money, and it's bad. Give me a second. I'll find some of the numbers. They declared in 2 years that they made money. 1 year was $900. Another year was like $18,000. But then they had a couple years where it was like $150,000 loss. And then you have $450,000 that they paid for the employees, benefits, retirement, maintenance on the building, a new bathroom in the basement. It's just ridiculous.
We were speaking a minute ago off air about the concessions and things like that, and how that ties in. And we also mentioned earlier, we were discussing before we got on here, because there are volunteers that work at the Harvester yet.
Before you go into the volunteer thing, I just want to check with Brian on one thing. 45% of the concession sales goes through a company, CB.
So hold on, let me read the actual line. And this came from a town document on their website. Harvester Performance Center, LLC, operates the concession stands and holds the ABC license for the facility. Revenues consist of merchandise, food, and alcohol sales. 45% of the gross receipts go to Performance Center Tenant, LLC, the operating entity.
Which is then?
So Performance Center Tenant, according to their own chart, their own documentation, is 99% owned by CB Performance Center, LLC.
Yep, which
Now,
is also owned by?
CB is owned by Carter Bank and Trust, and CB Performance Center, LLC, has the same address as the headquarters of Carter Bank and Trust. So I'm assuming the CB is Carter Bank.
Well, that would be safe to assume, I think.
I think so.
Yeah.
So
45% of those retail sales just go straight to them.
But that's gross.
Gross.
That's not net.
Yeah, why is it gross?
I would love to know.
What? How can you hide this? The transparency here is dear, beep me, beep, 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 is inconceivable.
It's mind-boggling.
To say the least.
Then there's another beauty. There are 4 checking accounts related to the operation of the Harvester Performance Center. I would love to know. I would love to know who has access to them. I would like to see statements.
Absolutely.
I would like to see where the money flows.
Who has the signing authority on all 4 of those accounts? These are simple questions.
They should be, and to be honest, this is where town council should have real oversight They should know all the information, and this is why change is needed. I'm sorry, there's no other.
I totally agree, because the lack of transparency on this one element alone should pretty much blow the lid off it. I hope the newly elected town council will be able to get to grips with this and provide the answers that we are, that we're looking for. And it's not unreasonable. The fact that you're hiding behind FOIA requests with private entities and a shell company game pretty much says everything.
It does, and I'm going to say this. You know the expression "ignorance is bliss."
Oh yeah.
Okay, I have sent all of these questions multiple times and CC'd town council to them, and so there's no, you can't say
no one's in the dark here.
No one should be in the dark unless they didn't read the email. I've heard that there's a couple even candidates who are so old they don't even know what email is, and it's time for a change. But so they could say they're ignorant of it, but there's at least one council member who had to have read the questions, and if they didn't, I hope people go and ask him, hey, what were the questions that Bryan asked? What were, because there's dozens of them.
But actually, the more important question is, why weren't they answered?
Well, there are no good answers, so why would you?
Well, absolutely. So we're still looking, and I hark back to the show with Holland and Philip, where we're really looking at complacency with years of service, and I think we all know who we're talking about here. I may have been a bit harsh, on the first episode with Philip, but when you see the level of, one can only use the word corruption
associated with this,
and lack of transparency, and the way that this has been set up, I've got a problem here, and racketeering isn't far off from what I'm looking at right now, because there's some shenanigans going on that really needs to be looked at, and to say, well, we all need to move forward and keep moving forward. Now, when you've got crimes going on here, they need to be investigated. And we're at the verge of a criminal investigation here. We need the harvester to succeed and be transparent. This is the end game. I think the town will be in a very worse off position without the harvester. But what we've got here, I'm absolutely horrified. And I still haven't dropped the infamous F-bomb.
Not yet.
I'll tell you what, it's getting pretty close.
Let's hold off.
I'm going to. Because I know you've got more. Keep going, Bryan. What else you got?
Well, it depends on which avenue we want to go down. But, so we've got this crazy, convoluted performance center project. And I think it's been posted, at least a representation on FOIA Rocky Mount, the Facebook page, FOIA Rocky Mount. And people just need to look at it and
if you can make sense of it, please come to the podcast and explain. And if anyone from the council or where this piece of legalese came from, if you want to come to the podcast, please explain, because absolutely no one has got a straight answer. In fact, it's not even an answer. They haven't got an answer, so they can't even give a straight answer.
Yeah. And the first rule of Fight Club.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
We don't talk about Fight Club.
The first rule of tax credits. You don't sell tax credits.
Right on.
Right? So just to kind of, as we go down, for the longest time, I was under the impression, oh, wait, I have a diagram. But anyway, I was under the impression that the tax credits made their way to Preservation 2014. 2014 being wholly owned by Virginia Preservation 2014 LLC.
That would make sense, right? Or would it?
It did.
Okay.
In my head. But then I'm sitting here thinking, why is Carter Bank and Trust part of this project? Could they have been, like taking one for the team and saying, you know what, we're going to buy those tax credits because rarely is a bank not profitable, so they're going to be able to use them. So we'll buy them, and somehow, the money will go. And so for the longest time, I figured it was this Performance Center SCP. But then when I did a FOIA to the National Park Service, Matt Hankins' name showed up. And at first it was as they were trying to declare the organization that was responsible for tax credits, it was entity information. And so both the state and the National Park Service have a 3-part application process. But in part 3, this Performance Center Building LLC's name popped up. And so it's like, wait a minute, the tax credits are now going to perform. It totally blew me off. I'm sitting here with one impression, and I even gave a diagram to the Fed saying, hey, here's what I think it happened. And then the National Park Service, also a federal agency, they threw me for a loop saying, hey, Performance Center Building is who qualifies for $1.3 million in tax credits. And so I'm sitting here, well, Performance Center is here. Then we slide down the chart, and it's Performance Center Tenant, which is 99% owned by CB Performance Center. And CB is owned by Carter Bank. So now I'm like, oh my gosh, did Carter Bank buy the tax credits? Or
that you're not supposed to be able to buy, right?
But in this case, because they're somewhat loosely related in this chart, maybe the tax credits just found their way to Carter Bank. But if Carter Bank...
Nothing is by coincidence. Come on.
Correct. And so, but if Carter Bank somehow came into possession of the tax credits, and then Performance Center Building got money for those tax credits, Performance Center Building would have to have shown that on a tax return. There would have to have been... You
can't hide that kind of money.
It's a taxable event. So at somewhere, 500 and something thousand transferred, according to James Irvin, the former town manager. And will you give me a second to find that email?
Absolutely. Yeah. We can jawbone about something. I mean, what else have we got?
I found it.
It's on the top.
So, in a FOIA request, there are several documents in this chart. Several documents in the chart that were listed, and so a FOIA was requested to get these documents.
Fair enough. There's the breadcrumb trail.
Here's a little bit of a breadcrumb, and
that's a half-an-inch tree there.
Yes, and I got to say, I'm not a fan of Mr. Irvin's, the former town manager, and maybe some more will come out about that. But he, in a couple FOIA responses, and so left incredible breadcrumbs. And in this particular one, in the response for the FOIA, he says, record of authorities note payments received from Performance Center Building, LLC. This request is not a specific document, but various documents exist that record payments from Performance Center Building, LLC to the town of Rocky Mount, not the Economic Development Authority, in the amount of $544,828.75 was paid on September 11th, 2015. And then another $107,000 was paid on March 30th, 2018. Okay, I have no record of the $544,000.
So that's just disappeared.
But it may have gone to the town. I just don't have it. I'm not. But I do have a record of the $107,000 because it went into a Carter Bank account for the Economic Development Authority. So he kind of misstates what happened here. But at least from a FOIA request, I do have.
That's documentary evidence.
So that some money ended up coming back to the town, not the $800,000 to $1 million $800,000 to $1 million that they said, but
we don't know where $500,000 went.
I would love to know.
Interesting.
And
to say, by the way, I mean, I love the way you put it. We're not quite so delicate here, I think, on this show. And when you say someone misspoke, they damn well lied. Someone lied.
Well, they know.
Knowingly
Somebody
or
knows.
unwittingly, I call BS on that too. Someone knew what they were doing. Where's $500,000? Where is it, folks?
Yeah, that's not money you lose in your couch.
And then there's a beauty. The beautiful one is...
Oh, well, it gets better.
I can go down so many rabbit holes. It's hilarious.
It's sadly hilarious.
So June 30th, 2020.
A little bit more current. Okay.
A little more. June 30th was the last day of the former assistant town manager, Matt Hankins. Now, he resigned only to receive what we believe is 6 months severance as a public official resigning.
Where was that? Is that in his contract?
You know what? That would be a good question.
I'm full of them.
You know, I have James Irvin's contract. I have Robert Wood's contract. I have.
So who elected or voted to give him a 6-month golden handshake?
The former town manager, James Irvin, is the one who wouldn't respond to FOIA requests saying that it's a personnel issue. But
hang on, no, that's a financial issue. It's not a personnel issue.
It's, this is, again, is where you would hope the town council.
These are taxpayers. These are taxpayer funds.
You want the town council.
I want transparency. I want the truth.
You want the town council to be
You
involved.
can't handle the truth. You need me on that wall.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean,
Good, but
I'm containing myself by the edge right now.
for whatever reason, a forensic audit was performed.
By whom?
A gentleman's name is Bill Barrett, and he, I don't know if he had finished doing it or anyway. No, it had taken weeks and months. But anyway, he had come into the restaurant, and I introduced myself, and so we got to understand. Okay, here's the guy. He's doing this forensic audit. So I'm like, hey, can I FOIA that? And I tried to FOIA the audit. And so on September 16th of 2020, a FOIA request, and it came back and said that, let's see, information pertaining to the recent audit performed. I'm asking for, the results of it. And Mr. Irvin's response was, to the extent that any of the requested records relate to the Harvester Performance Center, there are no records responsive to that request. The Harvester Performance Center is a private entity organized as a limited liability company under the laws of Virginia.
That's falling back on the same old excuse that they've been ramming down people's throats for the last 8 or 9 years.
And to continue, it is a separate entity from the town, and its records are not public records.
I beg to differ.
I do too. But further, to the extent that any of the requested records, the town elects to withhold them from disclosure under the attorney-client privilege and or work product doctrine, which
Legalese horse shit.
and it keeps going, which exempts records from disclosure under Virginia
I'm going to explode.
under Virginia Code sections 2.2-3705.1 paren 2, any other information protected by attorney-client privilege, and section 2.2-3705.1 paren 3, work product compiled specifically for the use in an administrative investigation concerning a matter that is properly the subject of a closed-door meeting under section 2.2-3711.
So that's legalese. Oh dear, my language is really off the deep
Hold on,
end.
because then I'm going to push it. I'm going to push that button.
Oh,
so
don't.
then this gets even better. So first they're saying that a forensic financial audit
It's not available.
is protected by attorney-client privilege.
Bullshit.
He is not an attorney. He's a finance guy.
Ooh.
And then they use this administrative investigation concerning the matter, right? And they've got this. So what's the investigation?
Who initiated the investigation?
So this is September 16th of 2020, right? So then in January of 2022, essentially the same Freedom of Information Act request, and want to know who's being investigated, all this. And where is the town of Rocky Mount replies with, it's verbatim, to the extent that any of the requested records exist. So, and it's a different, the first one was signed by James
Copy
Irvin.
and paste, yeah, copy and paste.
Copy and paste. So then follow-up on that FOIA was, attorney-client privilege doesn't pertain because it's a finance guy. He's not a lawyer in any respect.
Right.
And then upon receiving, again, the code from Virginia, went back and said, hey, by the way, you left a key word out, and it's not that it's an administrative investigation. It's an active administrative investigation. So it's been 2 years. And somehow in a town of 4,700 that we can investigate enough. What I actually think is happening, I think some improprieties were uncovered by the financial forensic guy. But I would like to see.
Where's the FBI in this?
And I think
because it's about time.
But in all honesty, I think they're trying to run out the statute of limitations.
Well, we can't allow that shit to happen. This is classic legalese, misdirection, and bullshit.
And then I love this response because it comes from Mark Moore, as if he doesn't have enough troubles. Thank you for providing me with your understanding of the information. However, the stand's position has not changed. Same language that James Irvin would use and so forth. And then just so we have, so that we're transparent ourselves, further, Virginia Code Section 2.2-3705.1, paren 3 states, legal memoranda and other work product compiled specifically for use in litigation or for use in an active administrative investigation concerning a matter that is properly the subject of a closed-door meeting under Section 2.2-3711.
Well, I think just about everyone listening fell asleep. And
well, unfortunately, I should have gone more monotone like the mayor.
Oh, absolutely.
Section 2.2.
But this is a pretty serious damn problem here, and I'm trying to keep the lid on my foul language.
But there was, just so everyone knows, and ask council members, especially those who are running for office, say, hey.
When did it become an inactive investigation? So there were results out there.
And let's release this forensic audit.
Yep.
You know, are there other bank accounts? You know, and I'm going to, this is going to be a little bit on the negative side.
Well, I'm afraid it has to be, because
we have a forensic audit, and we had a former town manager who declared bankruptcy in 2015.
How do you hold office when you've declared bankruptcy?
I know you can't be bonded, and so
therefore you can't hold office.
There's a big risk there.
You can't hold office if you can't be bonded, surely.
And it gets worse, but we're gonna lay that one for later. But it's so okay. We have a forensic audit.
Where is it?
Where's the results? Are there other bank accounts?
Who initiated this forensic audit? I'm intrigued.
I kind of think Mr. Irvin did, and I'm not sure, but
that's not for his benefit.
No, but it never came. We never got to see the light of day of it. So so we don't know what's in it.
Okay, so there's a forensic audit out there in the stratosphere, into the internets. That they are doing their utmost to hide.
That's internet's webs.
Internet's webs, yes. Them computer boxes.
Little hamsters turning them.
Yeah, damn hamsters. So this really disturbs me. I mean, if you have an ongoing financial investigation, well, if it's ongoing, you're not going to get the results.
But are they trying to run out the clock on statute of limitations?
I guarantee they are.
And this is why I hope the IRS is listening.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
if it isn't the IRS investigation, it's an FBI investigation at bare minimum.
I would think the FBI would be really into it. White-collar crime,
You're damn straight.
And this whole thing, I believe there was fraud with the tax credits. And I think, it would be good to kind of get that information out so that
Carter Bank's involvement in this...
And that's where this is a problem. So I don't know. I'm not.
Well, I mean,
anyone.
supposition and CB, whatever it is.
But they're on this document.
They're on the document.
I would love them. I'd love to get
transparency.
Transparent. The money came. Actually, the money came from the town of Rocky Mount, and it goes through this, gigantic org chart and blah blah blah. The Harvester was a success in name only. It had some big bands, but when you look at the ticket sales, it was a disaster. When you look at the finances, it was a disaster.
So who is managing ticket sales and marketing of the Harvester? Let's get rid of all the other 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 shell companies that are doing some very fraudulent actions on, as far as I'm concerned. And I'm allowed to throw those accusations out because I don't give a shit. So who is behind the physical management of ticket sales, performing artists, and marketing of this fantastic venue?
Currently, it's Midwood Entertainment.
Well, they're failing miserably.
And they're not even a local entity either, correct?
No,
Out
they're
of
down in
Charlotte.
North Carolina and Charlotte.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got a problem there. So we've got two clowns that are shilling the town council at a bare minimum of $250,000 a year basic salary that have subcontracted getting performers in and ticket sales to a company in North Carolina.
Well,
I'd love to know what they're being paid.
Yeah. Well, the budget for their first year, the town's budget for the harvester, I want to say was in excess of $600,000.
And their ticket sales for that particular year?
I have nothing. The ticket sales, the records I have go up to COVID, and then it stops.
Is there any specific reason why we can't get those records?
Well, I just read you that,
I think
it's a
after
private entity.
I think, well, it's a private entity, and we're not going to give you any FOIA requests or any information whatsoever, so kiss my arm.
Private entity, however, being
What
taxpayer.
we've got is layers of incompetence, bureaucrocy, and legalese.
Well, clearly not incompetence, because
Well, no, they're
Very,
they're
very well
competent
competent.
in lining their own pockets, quite clearly.
Well, and this is
Did
again.
I say
I'm
that
not,
out loud?
I'm not going there yet.
I am.
I want to see. I want to see where the money went. I want to see. I want to see every point.
They've obstructed every opportunity that you have asked for transparency.
Not everyone.
Damn close. All right, so you've got some documents here.
I've got
the whole story has
1,000 pages
definitely.
here.
Well, you've got half a tree.
But I've got.
But the answers are not blatantly, glaringly obvious.
It took a long time.
And half a tree.
And half a tree. But you have,
This should be very disturbing to anyone listening, because we truly believe that the Harvester as a performing venue has got legs. We want it to succeed. And this horseshit that is being administered by how many shell companies, I do not know, how many attorneys, how many obstructionists.
and actually, through a FOIA request, this document and this structure cost the town about $150,000 in legal fees.
Oh
And
God, I'm really am afraid to ask what legal fees
But
pay
the
to
town
who?
has a
Pay to who?
paid attorney, though, correct?
well, the attorney, the law firm that created this was Gentry Locke out of Roanoke. And Bruce Stockburger was the lead. And Bruce Stockburger was the one that told the town council they had to create an economic development authority because municipalities do not qualify for tax credits. And it's in the minutes. So I downloaded the minutes from 2012 through like 2018 or 19. And then whoever redid the website for the town, can I use a bad word?
Go on, go for it.
They shit the bed.
Yeah.
It just,
Well, it's pretty
awful.
self-evident.
And so now all of a sudden, like you can't go back. You used to be able to find the minutes and the budgets.
Yeah,
and
the new web page. I know the new web page you can't access, so you have to FOIA. And as Philip Bain found out, FOIAing can cost him up to $1,400 per whatever it was.
I've spent over $1,000 in FOIAs.
Well, I can see with the number of documents that you have here, half a tree, I can see that maybe administratively there could be $1,000. But for Philip's request, I believe it was for minutes from a previous meeting. Then when they changed the website, it was on the previous website. So it was a very easily 23-page downloadable document that was in existence, was in the public view, and he was going to be charged $1,400. So that's obstruction, clearly. Wow.
So real quick, because this is so funny, we FOIA'd invoices from law firms, or because there were Gentry Locke, John Boitnott, and the law firm Woods Rogers.
Woods Rogers and Moore. It used to be Moore. I don't know if it still is.
But anyway, here's the funniest thing on Gentry Locke. So they have it's all redacted by some child.
I see that. It looks like someone, a 3-year-old, got scribbling. I'm afraid to ask.
But take a look at these legal fees and then these two hash marks where they redacted.
7,500 is one sum. The other sum, and I can't see who these legal fees are to be paid to, is 85,500. And next to that, in brackets, parentheses, is 90% of fee. So 85,500 represents 90% of the fee. So it's actually more than that.
The fee was 95,000, but look at all that detail you get.
And it's all been redacted by a crayon.
Is it? It's if an inch at best of lawyers do things time and materials. This is a product, something you pull off the shelf and buy. The tax credit program, whatever it is, $95,000 is what the town paid for it, and that is your detail.
So we don't know who got paid 95.
No, we do. It's right here.
Oh, okay.
It's Gentry Lock, Rakes and More. And then here's another funny one. So the town of Marion, Ohio, town of Marion, Virginia, they also did a tax credit. Guess what law firm was involved with that one?
Wouldn't be the same one by any chance.
And it would be. And guess how much they spent?
$95,000.
Actually, I need to go back. They spent a total amount not to exceed $144,000. It was in their minutes.
Oh, well, that was mighty big of them.
Now, the big difference, the town of Marion, the building that was done, wasn't owned by the town of Marion, so it probably was a more legit structure in the tax rehabilitation game. But
so
the harvester is owned by the town of Rocky Mount, therefore the building doesn't qualify for tax credits. But it's okay.
This is looking like an attorney's fest at raping taxpayers from their from funds that could be better spent in forwarding projects for the town and not for various attorney firms that are.
It's why we need to know. This is we can't cast aspersions. We can only look at the documents.
Well, I can cast aspersions.
Well,
because I don't care. So this is really. This is small town Rocky Mount. Yes, it is the seat of Franklin County, and we need to have a better system of transparency and accountability.
And this is what I'm hoping from the new town council, because if you are running for election, the story must be told. I don't care. It's
gonna hurt people. There's no question.
We can't move forward. We can always forgive, but we have to know the deets.
Yeah, this can't be brushed underneath the rug. Not when you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, potentially even more.
Well, not to mention you're also talking about a venue that wasn't voted on by the citizens, and a venue that I would venture to say 80 to 90% of the citizens don't even use. That
was actually the premise. The harvester initially was to attract outside money coming into the county or into the town, really. They wanted 80% plus of ticket sales to go to people from out of the county. And so maybe that's why they're priced higher, and so forth. But I did analysis of the 2018 finances, and they spent $8 per ticket sold on marketing. And
I did read that. And
it's a joke. The marketing, I'm sorry. Again, shit the bed. Whoever did the marketing was awful. You can't get around it. For them to have not lost as much, if they were to just break even, they would have to have sold enough tickets, different. For every ticket goer would have to have spent $300 in food and lodging for the ticket for that one show.
Delusional.
They'll never recoup the money.
No, not a chance in hell.
And it's, and it can be okay as an initiative, but even such, if you wanted to do, we can't do food and lodging because lodging is 7.5%. So even if they were come in and buy retail, you're still looking at over $300 of sales tax, meals tax, lodging tax,
Recycling money.
just to break even, just for the town to break even.
Yeah, we got a problem. This is a big problem.
I mean, it's a, yeah.
But I know you went back there, Billy, and said, we didn't vote for it. That's the royal we. Do excuse me. I live in Callaway, so I had no voting on this, and I don't have any skin in the game whatsoever. But you've got to look at. I think the concept is 100% on the money. The performing centre is 100% on the money. How we come up with solutions to these shenanigans is a problem, because it's going to take some deep thought. And I think
the solution is transparency.
Is transparency.
Let's open up the kimono.
They're not going to. They've clearly demonstrated that the current
the new
administration,
council,
but the new council,
if
they're going to stand and if they're going to run and win, I want them to come out and say, I approve of 100% transparency on the financial dealings of the harvester and all the companies that are associated with it. If they don't, I don't know how anyone would support them. And that's the challenge I put out there to everyone who is running and has skin in the game. You have to say, we will give you 100% transparency on the financial dealings of the harvester and every associated LLC that is on that spread page. I dare you. The challenge is down. You've got a few weeks to pick it up. And if you've got any skin in the game and you want this to become a profitable performance centre, this is the only way forward.
Yeah.
Got them.
That's
it. If you're serious and you want to run and you want credibility, make that statement.
4 new council members. Well, a mayor and 3 new council members.
Make that statement. Every single one of you. And then
support. Everyone
that's listening, vote for that person.
Vote for transparency.
We want transparency. This is the only way that this is going to get fixed. And I really, it's just come to me in a flash. And I only had a few beers, which is a miracle. That's how to do it. All right, so we've come up with a suggestion there with a potential solution, which is how it should go. I want to discuss something about this economic development
authority,
because there was, I think, a pretty blatant conflict of interest on how this was set up. But I'd like you to explain it, Brian, because you've got that FOIA information. I've seen it, and it's pretty blatant. But let it go.
All right. So the former assistant town manager, Matthew Hankins, was the assistant town manager, the CEO of the Harvester, the executive director of the nonprofit called Friends of Live Music in Rocky Mount, a.k.a. Friends of the Harvester. But according to the FOIA, in December of 2017, the EDA opened a checking account at Carter Bank, and the first deposit was for $334,680.
Not a significant, insignificant amount.
Pocket change to the town.
Well, it would appear so, the way they're spending it.
Come on. So, interestingly, the very day it opens on December 22nd, 2017, a handwritten check in the amount of $290,545 was written to the Harvester. Now, this check...
From whom?
Well, it was from the EDA.
Okay.
Which has a chairman and board members, has a separate, citizens who have stepped up to try and help the town. But interestingly, the check was signed by the former assistant town manager, former CEO of the Harvester, and former executive director of the Friends of the Harvester nonprofit, Matthew Hankins.
And he was holding all these titles at the same time.
All these titles at the same time.
Well, that's a blatant conflict of interest.
Total conflict of interest. I'd love to touch upon the donation to Friends of a Harvester, and we'll touch on that in a sec. But then ironically, in FOIAing the bank records, so this $290,000 check signed by Matthew Hankins was then
to the harvester,
signed by Matthew Hankins.
Yeah, okay.
So I mean, this is pretty good. You handwrite. I mean, I don't know, it's pocket change. You just handwrite a $290,000 check, sign it, and endorse it all in the same motion.
Oh, it was endorsed by him as well.
And and it goes to the harvester. So is that a taxable event to the harvester? Because it's a for-profit entity receiving money
from a non-profit.
From the economic
development.
Yeah, this is one of the more fascinating things. And then later, there's another check for $107,000 that we kind of touched on earlier that was supposed to have come from the Performance Center building to the town, but it actually came from the EDA to the town. And that is the only money that I can track through FOIAs that went back to the town treasury. Again, signed and endorsed by said Mr. Hankins.
So there's some accounting questions and conflict of interest questions that really need to be answered. I'm assuming you've queried this. Did you get any response from anyone other than the copies of those checks?
So unfortunately, FOIA, you can request documents. If they have documents, they're supposed to send them to you. They're not obligated to answer questions. So I can only suppose certain portions. And it's just kind of funny. It's sad because, not only did the town spend basically $450,000, here's another $290,000 going to the harvester. Gone.
Where did it go?
You know what? Interesting lines.
That's the key question, isn't it?
It is.
So perhaps the incoming town council would like to address the $290,000 in its whereabouts.
Wouldn't it be nice?
I think it would be transparent because that's now the word of the evening.
So where's the tax return and that shows that amount of money? In addition to, and when we say the town lost $450,000, the town paid the salaries of the employees who ran the harvester. So they were town employees running the harvester. So, in effect, the harvester being a for-profit entity so that the town could essentially swindle and sell tax credits, they paid for the employees, their benefits, they paid for licensing, equipment, all sorts of stuff. The harvester had better have put that on their tax returns as income because it was an in-kind donation. And over the 7 years,
over whatever the
over $1 million,
over whatever the permitted gifting is, because I'm sure there's a limit, but it would well exceed that.
Right. And when you think of that, so the income, not only was it the money that spent, you hired this employee and the employee did the work for the harvester. So that was free labor as far as the harvester's concerned, except they actually have to, by IRS rules, they have to report that. And it is an income, an in-kind donation and so forth, an income. And that wasn't the only thing. So the harvester for-profit entity, right? Well, the volunteers, beautiful people. We kind of touched on this earlier where, first impression is a lasting impression, and the harvester volunteers, phenomenal.
Yeah, no disagreement. The times I've been there, they've always been very welcoming.
Opening doors, greeting you, just nice people. And you want that. You want people to feel welcomed. You want them to come back and
take ownership.
Yeah, and it improves the experience. Well, all those volunteer hours technically should be reported on the income or on the tax return as income. And even if you did
benefit in kind,
yeah, and even if you did minimum wage, it's tens of thousands every year.
I mean, I can see the advantage and the temptation not to report volunteer services because it actually assists the harvester in its margin.
If it was a nonprofit, that's one thing. It's for profit. And it's for profit because you can't get tax credits if you're a nonprofit or if you're a municipality, which is the whole reason the whole thing got set up. It's the craziest scheme. It took me a long time to figure out, but the documents
They speak for themselves.
Basically, if I'm wrong, I want to be shown where I'm wrong. But I guarantee that if I'm wrong and they show me where I'm wrong, it's going to uncover even more wrongdoing on their part. So, coming back.
Wow, it's a nest of vipers.
Sorry about that.
No, you're fine. We it wouldn't be a show if we didn't have something dropping and distracting away. It happens every single time. It's no big deal.
So then I need to find my folder. I'm looking for the one. So we have Friends of the Harvester.
Now, this is through the half of tree that Brian has brought with him. Bless him.
It is nuts. All right,
it's very organised, actually. I mean,
Friends that got it.
Well, I mean, it's quite
Smoke.
compelling. You know, when you have this much documentation on something, you've clearly done your homework. And
I think if you're going to make this sort of case, I think you have to document it and be very specific.
Well, this just goes to show, to the people out here listening, this isn't a witch hunt on our end. This is us trying to be able to get the facts and information out there to you, because clearly that corporate media is not going to give you this. We've mentioned this time and time before that they might give you a 30-second clip on WDBJ7. It's very open-ended, or maybe like a 4 or 5 paragraphs in a newspaper. But
they won't come and speak to us.
But exactly. So, as far as I'm concerned, this is probably more. This is probably more right here than I did in 4 years of college. I can guarantee you that much.
Okay. So the Friends of the Harvester, looked up online. You can all look it up. All nonprofits are supposed to.
So these are non-profits.
It was a nonprofit. I have never FOIA'd who paid for the nonprofit, whether the town set it up or not. But Matt Hankins self-declared himself as the executive director. Be that as it may, in 2018, on the 2018 tax return, they received a very generous $100,000 gift from an anonymous donor.
Oh, please don't tell me we don't know where that went.
So, it gets worse.
Oh, shit.
So,
really?
This is actually pretty funny. So it's an anonymous donor. There's a P.O. box, $100,000. And then the very first action taken by the executive director, and it was probably handwritten, was to write a commission check to the executive director in the amount of $5,000.
That's skimming off the top, right? From
So
a non-profit.
So you work for the town. You declare yourself the executive director of a nonprofit. You you receive a donation for $100,000, and you didn't even arrange the donation. This is the killer. The donation, I know who arranged it. Didn't happen, but the executive director decides that, 5% is fair commission. I get that.
For already getting paid as a town employee on top of that.
Yeah.
I wonder if he declared that in his taxes.
Well, he did, I'm sure, because I would have to think, because it's in the...
I have to question it with what else
it's in the tax
going
return as a $5,000 commission.
You would think.
So you'd have... But then there's another interesting piece. Apparently, there's $73,459 in underwriting of loan to Harvester Performance Center. So in 2017, at the end of 2017, $290,000 comes from the EDA that was handwritten by Matthew Hankins. And then in 2018, according to their own, the nonprofit's tax return, there's another $73,000. So, unfortunately, that money is probably gone, lost. But the harvester would probably have to put that on their tax return as additional income.
73 grand. Yeah.
Another,
and it's not chump change, is it?
It's not, and it's sad because the generosity of the donor
has been flagrantly abused.
Terribly.
I mean, how does the donor feel?
I would love to know who anonymous is.
Well, is it? And I can only ask this as somebody who's very inexperienced in these matters, but is it fairly common or uncommon that somebody make a generous donation to that nature to a for-profit business?
Well, this was a nonprofit that the donation went to.
So went to the nonprofit, which is essentially still tied in.
There was a goal to make the harvester self-sustaining. And part of it was to have a nonprofit in place where they could raise funds and so forth. But as soon as funds were raised, out the back door went $5,000. And then, another $73,000. And then,
where's the ethics behind that, man?
Well, I mean, we're far beyond ethics at this point in time.
So,
and so, a person,
We're nearly all just completely dumbstruck here with how the hell does that happen?
when it has to go, why is it that only Bryan, for the most part, has been the one investigating into this, or even like somebody somewhere down the line should have been asking questions. At least one county employee, one town employee, one politician, somewhere down the line, even to a delegate or a state representative, somewhere.
Well, it tells me the corruption runs a lot deeper, because this is just scratching the surface by all accounts.
It is. And all right, the main reason any of this I ever decided to FOIA was the food truck.
Now, this
one might get you your first F-bomb.
This is. I'm going to try not to, because I'm very conscious of people's sensibilities and how delicate some people are.
Yeah, give me the signal so I can cover my ears.
Yeah, so be careful.
Although Mr. Hankins is probably saying that right now.
This tale. When I first heard about it, I dropped multiple F-bombs on this one. I'd like Bryan to explain it, and I will probably interject, and I shall try my utmost to keep my cool, because if this is how the town council is going to behave towards privately owned business within the beautiful town of Rocky Mount, don't expect too many businesses to come in here, because if this is how they're going to be treated.
Well, in a privately owned business that's set up specifically because of the harvester.
Exactly. So,
yeah.
Bryan, tell the story and be prepared. I may come in with a rant. Over to you.
Like Dennis Miller. I'm not going to go on a rant here, but...
I'm definitely going to go on a rant on this one. Listen to this. You won't believe it.
Okay. So, yes, my first restaurant, Bootlegger's Cafe, was specifically put in place because of the harvester. And I love the harvester. I think that people have a perception that I'm trying to shut it down, and that
couldn't be further from the truth.
Furthest thing from the truth. But I do want competence, and town council, several employees, all at the higher end, are inept, incompetent, and corrupt. Okay. So
that's a fairly sweeping statement, just to kick this one off.
But it's one or more of those. It's not.
It's all of them.
Right. Yes.
I'm just helping you along the way here, Bryan.
The question is are you inept, incompetent, or corrupt?
Well, either way,
yes.
there's no matter which one it is, there's no excuse. It's inexcusable either way.
It's
so tell us what happened here.
Okay.
Because I understand.
And this is the other thing. So I use the food truck, and I always refer to it as food truck. It wasn't the first time, right? But it was definitely the last. So on March 1st, 2020.
And we'll make bloody sure of it.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to hear some F-bombs there? I drive home every night. Mother.
Yeah.
But anyway, and I've got the picture here. So on March 1st, 2020, the Indigo girls are in town, and the harvester said, you know what? We're going to have a pre-party. And
very showbiz.
Right. And the sooner you show up, the better your seat will be for the Indigo girls. And then they put a food truck right across the street, 50 feet from the burger company. And in the picture, you have this a food truck that specializes in burgers across the street from the burger company, with the incentive that you get a better seat if you show up earlier, and you have to stay. If you left, you go to the back of the line.
Which isn't something uncommon. I know the House of Blues in Myrtle Beach has a similar thing. If you go there and you eat at the restaurant ahead of time, you can actually get to the front of the line. So it is, it's not.
There's an incentive.
There's definitely an incentive.
I get it. But this food truck was parked in the lay-by directly opposite your restaurant.
Exactly. And so it depressed our sales
No shit.
and they served alcohol out in the back courtyard here, or the parking lot. They roped it off, but they didn't have ABC approval to serve alcohol outside of the premises. And it's not a hard thing to get. Basically, it takes an email, but they didn't do it. And there was an investigation, and because of COVID, I bet all they had to do is relinquish their license while they were closed anyway, or pay a $2,500 fine. But
or which is paid by the taxpayer.
Yeah, I mean, but one way or the other,
right?
But but it wasn't the first time a food truck had been there. You have, they had other pre-party events, but this one set me off. And Matt Hankins, the assistant town manager, absolutely knew that it violated town ordinance for one, a food truck cannot be within 100 feet of a brick and mortar restaurant. Now
that to me, I'm not going to trivialize it, because absolutely those are the rules. You stick by the rules. But for the town to break its own rules is unconscionable. But what makes this really infuriating is that you have set the restaurant up knowing that your key market was going to stem from the harvester, and the clowns at the council made a request for a food truck without the necessary permits or whatever was required for them to be there. They then basically pulled the rug on a local business, and they wiped it in your face.
They did. It was a poke in the eye. So
I'm trying not to F-bomb this one out of the park right now.
Well, hold on.
But I'd like to know the guy that requested that food truck. Where did that damn food truck come from?
Well, it was called Lazy Bulldog or something, Lazy Bullfrog. I think it was Lazy Bulldog. I think they were out of Roanoke.
Okay, so did they pay a tax revenue for the business that they took away from you? Did the town receive any revenue from that truck?
So this 4-letter F word.
Oh yeah,
FOIA.
Oh right. Oh damn! I thought it was another one.
So so I FOIA'd over and over.
I thought you were reading my mind.
Yeah. So anyway, so I FOIA'd the town in multiple ways to help them understand. So I would FOIA, give me all the business licenses for food trucks.
Right.
And then the Lazy Bulldog didn't show up. So it's like, hey, all right. So multiple FOIAs, they did not have a business license. So they weren't legal. So it's the harvester that invited them, which the CEO is the assistant town manager, and he's fully well-versed on rules and regulations. And so
he loves using them.
So they didn't have the business license. They didn't pay meals tax to the town, which they collected from all the patrons. So they just got this profit.
It begs the question. Okay, so there's a twofold question here. Who requested the food truck? Who received the backhanded payment under the table for the money that wasn't collected and that was owed to the town as a food tax? There is a bribe going on here, and if nobody sees it, you've got to be blind.
Well, you have to hold those who are in charge responsible.
I absolutely do.
And so that led to my letters to the editor.
And this is how this thing got rolling, and I'm not surprised. Talk about taking the piss.
Oh, yeah. No, so it was a Sunday night show, March 1st. We staffed because we knew we were going to be busy. And we had...
So you upstaffed and got shafted.
Yeah, but not just... we lost revenue, but all our employees are local. And so they got shafted.
Yep.
Right? So...
And then the town ultimately gets shafted because they didn't get the meal tax.
And so any cash
from the food truck to start with.
And any cash payments essentially never even existed by the books as
now
well.
Let's explain one thing here before keeping it together. At the burger company, you have a POS system.
Yep.
So this is a payment system that pretty much does all your tax calculations, meal tax, etc., whatever it is, and it's run through that for, here comes that word again, transparency. They deliberately put the food truck out there, knowing it was a big crowd with a big audience. They did it illegally, and someone got a backhand for it.
Well, I don't know. I'm not going to go there.
Oh, I'm going to go there because I don't care. This is how this shit works.
But I see it more as government malfeasance.
Oh, I go a little bit further. Someone got their pockets lined. I'm not going to say who. It's pretty obvious.
But it's anyway. All right.
Yeah, leave me to it.
No.
I don't care.
Yeah, I know, but at the same, I'm just saying.
But this is disgraceful because this is your business, right?
Yeah.
This is your business.
This picture is it's ingrained in my head.
Yeah.
I hate it.
It couldn't be a bigger slap in the face for small business that is looking to make Rocky Mount a successful place. Man, you know what? I hope Philip with the hotel kicks it off. I hope Harvester gets straightened out. I hope we get some ethical people in council. And I hope certain people actually get prosecuted for this, because what's going on here is way worse than malfeasance. Way worse.
It is.
This is criminal.
And this was the seminal moment in which I decided I could no longer play defense, because it wasn't – the Harvester had been doing other things, had been saying other things. At some point, I'd love to talk about Blackberry Smoke and the shower incident and all that stuff.
We'll come back on that, because I know what will happen now is we're going to get a bunch of questions through the podcast.
This food truck, okay, so this became the impetus for my FOIAs. My first FOIA came after this, and it was basically going for it's going for the details. Did this food truck have a right to be there? And it did not.
Well, even if it did have the right to be there, why are you putting a competing burger food truck on the opposite side of the road of a burger company was set up specifically on the grounds that the Harvester was going to be a reliable income stream for said burger company?
I'm the only investor because of the Harvester, right? Until recently, there have been some other steps, but the Harvester's been essentially closed. Even with it being open, it's open so rarely, it's effectively closed. So, you gotta sit there and say, "Holy cow! What were they thinking?" Other than to be
vindictive.
Yeah, I mean,
it's way worse.
There was malintent here, and I know it.
That was a malicious move. Can I get a congratulations for not using one F-bomb during that little session?
You can always say FOIA.
FOIA. There you go. When I say FOIA, everyone knows what I'm really thinking.
Go FOIA yourself.
Indeed, yeah. We're going to FOIA you so hard.
I hope you get a paper cut on that FOIA.
Yes, indeed. So that is an appalling sequence of events. But you know what?
So,
this has spurred you into taking action, and they will regret the day that they made that move.
Yes, and listen, 4 months later, I had a letter to the editor about no food trucks. And in it, I talked about the FOIAs to get
This is the editor.
Letter to the editor at the at the Franklin News Post.
Well, they're the same bloody thing.
They really are.
Yeah, they are, sadly.
And by the way, before they would print any of my letters, I had to prove every aspect of it.
Well, it's all right. They're in collusion with the town council anyway, so
they did not want to.
Don't count.
They did not want to print my letters to the editor.
Well, I thought letters to the editor were essentially just opinions from citizens, though.
I tried to make that argument. It did not work, and they really made me so everything. Like when it was like, okay, hey, you're talking about the executive director getting a $5,000 check. I had to prove it.
Well, so you can't make a slanderous or malicious statement. To a certain degree, I understand that. But as a letter to an editor, you can pretty much print what you want.
Correct.
But so go ahead with this letter. What was the outcome?
So
here?
my first letter was on June 5th, and it was the Harvester needs new oversight, and that continues to this day. Right?
No
this is
shit.
2.25 years ago, and it still nothing really good there.
There is no oversight.
But on July 8th, 2020, I wrote, and so basically, what was I saying here about the town? They needed to they needed to apologize.
At the very least.
They put a food truck there, had no business license. They should apologize. They should admit that it was wrong, right?
Publicly.
They should put systems in place so that it doesn't happen again. And they should truthfully compensate us, because myself and our employees, we lost money that night because of their
Put a number on it.
maliciousness.
Give us a rough number of what you think you might have lost from.
I think we lost $2,000 to $3,000.
Okay, that's a significant
Yeah.
impact on a night's salary and income and margin.
So, but this is where the town, I don't know, I guess they can't admit wrongdoing or anything, or town council can, or the town administration.
Why? Because they're cowards?
I think it's
Oh, sorry, I
inherent.
said that out loud. I didn't mean to.
No,
Sorry, FOIA.
I think it's just inherent. Maybe it's their legal advice. I don't know. But I told Mike Allen at the Roanoke Times that it was because of that specific event, and that they wouldn't apologize or anything. Then I started okay, I hear the town's corrupt. Let's go find out what we can find out. And sure enough, I found out a lot. Right?
Yeah, I think you've been very studious in your documentary evidence. I think it's abundantly clear. Everything here is supported with documents. Okay, so I just want everyone to be well aware that this isn't some, malicious hatchet job done by Bryan here or the podcast.
I know. I was on defense. I would have stayed on defense. You poke a person in the eye one too many times.
This is what
You're
happens.
going to get a reaction.
Well, I mean, they will get their just desserts from this. What I would like to see as the outcome is a little bit of honesty and integrity from town council in addressing this.
Yeah, I'd like to know where Bobby Moyer is.
Yeah.
I'd like to know where the mayor is, right? These guys have been around. They have seen my emails to them. I know the vice mayor's not a big fan of mine. I don't really care.
Well, he is here. Let's not lose the thread here. They are here to serve us. They are paid by the taxpayer.
You pay taxes and you serve them.
Oh, that's an F-bomb right there.
That is, I mean, they feel...
Well, that's absolutely arse backwards. And if that's the case, they've all got to go. If that is truly the feeling of the council and the administration, then that level of arrogance, you all need to resign. And oh no, I nearly said it. I'm keeping it on the inside. FOIA off.
FOIA.
Because that's unacceptable.
Yeah.
You're in shock, Billy. I haven't seen this before.
Yeah, it's very rare. I'm speechless. Maybe y'all should come over more often and help out my wife, because I talk her ears off all the time. So
I'm a talker.
Despite all of this, nobody has once ever, on the record or off the record, approached you and given you any kind of answers or any kind of resolution at the least.
Not once.
But they haven't done it again since, so have they?
Well, COVID kind of disturbed that. They did have a couple parties at the farmers, or not a couple performances at the farmers market, and they brought in food trucks there. And technically, they were more than 100 feet away from me. And it was Gary Jackson.
Again,
is out to hurt me.
It's just personal. This has got personal again.
Now, Gary Jackson. Now he used to be the one who booked the acts at the Harvester, correct?
Excuse me.
And but there's a lot of avoiding transparency with that as well. Weren't there? Aren't there questions there with potential booking fees and?
Well, I'd like to know. I got questions. I mean, it appears that a lot of business was done through personal email.
Now, what was his role aside from the booking agent there? Did he have?
Well, he's a general manager, so he was responsible for the Harvester
as a town employee.
As a town employee, paid at one of the FOIAs like $78,000 plus all the benefits.
So that should have been maximum salary right there. So as the booking agent now I don't know a ton about this kind of stuff, but I do know as somebody who really enjoys music quite a bit that there are booking fees. I know Sandra. She's a local booker for a lot of these restaurants and whatnot around here. And
She's great,
and she gets a small fee every single time. So, I mean, what is the likelihood that Gary Jackson was receiving booking fees potentially on the side? Do we have, emails from a government account showing
not if it's done on personal emails?
Well, I mean, were there?
I have emails that were from a personal account, and
Conducting town business.
Conducting town business.
You can't do that.
So essentially, those emails cannot be covered under a FOIA request.
Correct. I mean,
they're designed not to be.
I mean, I've got the ones that I've received, so it made me question whether or not, were all the bands booked through a personal email account. There were $6 million in bookings from 2014 to 2019. It's in the financial report. So the town spent $6 million. Well, the harvester spent $6 million. The question is, did the town employee use his town official email to book those bands, or did it go through a personal account?
Well, that should have been the only way. If that should have been the only way.
There's no oversight.
Booked. It should be only government emails that are available for requests. Like things like that should not be going on.
And that would be something that needs to be learned.
There is no oversight.
But I have emails that were directed to me that were threatening to me in my businesses, in the sense that they thought I did something wrong. I did not, but they threatened to tell, or Gary in his email using a personal account said, the word of mouth travels very fast through the artist community, and they may do that, spread the word, bad things about us through the artist community.
I hope you saved that.
Oh,
jolly good.
I got that.
Yeah, that's okay. We'll just hold that one in a safe place.
So there is.
Oh no, it went to the attorney with the screenshots from the Blackberry Smoke manager.
We're going to come on to that in the next show, but that's going to be I
think we should save that one.
So essentially. Now we're not making any accusations or anything like that, but there is a potential that the person being paid, Gary Jackson, by the town to do the booking was essentially, potentially getting booking fees on the side, but we cannot figure that out because a lot of dealings were done with a personal email.
We don't.
So we don't know, but there is a potential. There's a likelihood that may have happened.
But when I received more than one email from a personal account that, like, before I consider Blackberry Smoke's recommendation to warn acts about what they're in for using your inn or restaurant, like, wait a minute.
How intimidating and threatening is that?
From a public official who controls the all contacts with the harvester, with all the acts, it's pretty threatening.
Now, why is he no longer in that position?
He also retired. I do not believe he received any after retirement benefits like the chief of police and the former town assistant manager or assistant town manager.
Yeah, this is a town manager.
I'd love to see their contracts.
Which one we're speaking about?
Matt Hankins, the
Matt
assistant
Hankins.
He got 6 months, we believe. The former police chief looks like he got 12 months, maybe more, because I haven't sent a FOIA in asking for the latest, and maybe Mr. Mark Moore could, kind of get ready.
Who's signing these contracts? In fact, who's making these contracts?
Because they work for the town manager, I would think that would be where to go. But
I think that's the direct line for the assistant town manager. Is he is not employed by the council, he's employed by the town manager.
Yeah,
that's my understanding.
Yes. So the town council hires the town manager and the town attorney, which also has an interesting story, which I don't know if we want to cover tonight or not. Well, let's save that one. But again, I mean, you've got conflict of interest, you've got corruption, you've got questions that need to be answered, and
and all we want is a successful performing harvester.
Yeah,
this is all we want. It's the perfect cure to lift this town, into another category of success, and it's being completely destroyed by this corruption.
This town will blow it out of the park.
Yeah, and they're being held back by the town council and the administration. It's abundantly clear.
And the former chief of police had quite a few allegations against him, if I'm not mistaken. Is this what we're talking about as far as was it sexual misconduct? And I apologize if I'm wrong, but or harassment or something to that
Harassment.
nature? Okay, so
Yeah, he belittled other town employees under his whatever purview.
And multiple lawsuits going on against him.
Yeah, one time, let's see, there were 3 that I knew of. One has been dropped. One has been settled out of court.
At taxpayer expense.
I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Although I tried to FOIA the amount, and they said there were no records. But since I know that there were because it was reported in the press, again, FOIA is only as good as honesty in the government is.
And the former town, was it assistant manager or manager, had quite a few allegations against him as well. Which one are we talking about there?
The former town manager, he's a troubled soul.
Now, is he the one that took a job at Wythe County, I believe?
No, that was the former assistant town manager.
Okay, so he was getting paid for an extra 6 months to work at another town.
So, yeah, and he resigned, can use that term loosely, but he resigned and he took like a $15,000 pay cut to go to Wythe County, but did receive 6 months. There's a FOIA request for the Wythe County.
At taxpayer expense again.
And a $15,000 pay cut. Now, I want people to put that in perspective, too. Now, Wytheville is a town that has a greater population than Rocky Mount. I'm not sure by how many, but it is greater than Rocky Mount. And it's also a much more vibrant town. It's another town that you can go to, and there's a lot of foot traffic down through there. They've got quite a few restaurants. And it's also smack dab in the middle of I-77 and I-81. So
and he's receiving a pay cut
for the least. And so why is a town, with that kind of reputation in a heavily trafficked area making significantly less than a town assistant?
Turn that question around the other way.
First of all, there's one correction. Wytheville is the town, Wythe County.
Yes.
And so Mr. Hankins went to Wythe County.
Okay, my apology. Okay.
Wytheville, but I do want people to pay attention. So Wytheville is opening a performance center. And forgive me, I don't have the name of it, Millard or something off the top of my head. But they are funding it through donations. They're funding it through a nonprofit called Downtown Wytheville. I've spoken to the executive director. They have their S together, and they do not want to be associated with the county as far as you don't want to, what happens in the county it's not as buttoned up as what the town is doing. But Wytheville also has what's called a designated outdoor refreshment area of drinking and walking. Very successful, has brought a lot of foot traffic in it. I think the town of Rocky Mount would be well poised to go ahead and
follow that model.
I
don't think they're progressive enough.
And then kind of interesting, so this theater's opening up. Well, they went after an IRS grant as opposed to tax credits. And it was a little more rigorous process, but they got it. And so therefore they're funding it. They're not in the business of swindling and selling tax credits a la Rocky Mount. And so it's like, and it's about 1,000 people bigger. I think it's a 6,000 person town. This is roughly a 5.
But with a lot more potential simply because it is right now in the middle of 81 and 77. So you do have multiple truck stops in the area as well. A lot of traffic coming through.
But this is closer to Greensboro and Roanoke.
Yes.
Which, there's like 5 million people in a 100-mile radius.
That's a hell of a catchment.
It's maybe not 5 million, maybe it's 1 million. But it's this is a bigger, this town has incredible potential. I'm really excited for the future. I really hope the election goes the way I want it to go. But this town is very well positioned in so many aspects. Corruption just needs to be addressed, cleaned up, and it starts with the vote in 3 weeks.
Yep.
And as we were just speaking on a few minutes ago too, so Hankins is the former assistant town manager, and the former town manager would be
James Irvin.
And now he's the one that criminal record or alleged.
So I don't know about criminal record. Filed for bankruptcy in 2015, which probably should have been the end of the job right there. His employment agreement shows that he would have been due 6 months salary, severance, whatever. And it's a pretty low price to just pay and get rid of the problem. I think the current town manager has the same kind of clause, if you will. Ironically, former town manager had to have an annual review, and his salary would be set by the council. A current town manager gets to provide raises to every employee and benefits by the average of the raise for his compensation, as opposed to
conflict.
having.
That's a hell of an incentive, isn't it?
I honestly, you can't write this stuff, but apparently John Boynton can, because I'm pretty confident that he, would be the town attorney. So,
dear. These contracts.
But anyway, and then you've got the divorces from the former town manager, in which the town attorney represented him, and this is a major conflict because the town attorney was hired by the town council first. Then the town manager, well, in this case, the former town manager, hired by the town council. And then you have the town attorney representing the former town attorney representing the former town manager, who also works for the town council. So the town attorney essentially has two masters, one of which works for the other.
And now, and if I'm not mistaken, we read something earlier, and was that part of a contract that stated that he would be represented by the town attorney, irregardless of what the situation may be.
It is the wackiest clause. I've shown it to a couple of attorney friends, and they're like, "Wait a minute."
Because this is important before we get out of here. This was a very important, because this is essentially stating that he is represented by the town attorney, regardless of it's a town matter, a government matter, or a personal matter, which essentially goes back to the taxpayers funding his legal fees, correct?
Right. And the problem being, we FOIA'd the town attorney's invoices, and they come back redacted that looks like a 5-year-old did it, right? So we don't know what we don't know. But there is this clause, section 17.
On what basis can the FOIA be redacted to such a degree?
So according to Virginia Supreme Court, it cannot. It is deemed that invoices are not work product by an attorney, so you can't say it's client-attorney privilege, and so you can't. But when challenged, the former town manager said, "We understand your belief, but we stand by our position, saying we can redact whatever we want, even if it's by a 5-year-old."
Ooh.
So if you are a current town employee, as far as anything on the council is concerned, town manager, assistant town manager, anything to that degree, is there anything stating that you have to live within town limits? I know that's the case for the mayor and the council, but for the assistant town manager, do you have to be a citizen of Rocky Mount?
Yeah. The assistant town manager is supposed to live within town limits. It is believed the current one has an apartment. I think it's on Church Street, but I mean, it's like it rents a room out. But everyone knows he drives 40 east to Pittsylvania County, where his family lives, and it may be, I don't know, 5 nights a week, maybe 7 nights a week. Who knows? But he has not moved. He has not relocated his family here. Maybe he doesn't care for the school system. I don't know.
So somebody that doesn't live here
is still getting paid.
Is still getting paid from here to make decisions about this place, allegedly.
And keep in mind, he started October 1 of 2020 at $91,000, and within a year and 3 quarters, he's now making $115,000. So a nice 20-something% jump in less than 2 years. But that benefits the town manager, because his compensation is based on the average raise that he gives.
Come on, people. I mean,
and I actually have that contract.
It's abundantly clear. I know. I've seen it.
Yeah, we went over that on the last show with Philip Bain, and it's pretty mind-boggling that we've allowed it to get to this point.
Brian, by the way, for this research, I mean, this is your half a tree's worth of being pissed off by one food truck. And let me tell you,
Well, it wasn't one food truck. It was multiple.
Well, it was multiple, but this is the one that tipped the balance.
The one that set me...
Yeah.
There was no reason to start digging in.
Well, I mean, I am impressed with your research, your due diligence, and your persistence. This is what has been required, and I think the town will owe you a debt of gratitude.
Yeah, I hope people take interest, and really the most important thing is ask questions.
Yeah.
Right? I've got my documentation. I'm satisfied with how I've gone about it. I want the harvester to succeed.
We all do.
It will not succeed with the current
Under this
management.
administration? No.
But then again, now I want to see, because of the way things have been done, I want to see the corporate documents. I want to know who are the officers for all 7 or
8,
15
9, whatever.
or
How
30.
many bloody shell companies are there?
Yeah.
There's a lot.
And then tax returns are important. And then, I mean, they show losses in excess of what they budgeted from the town. So if they violated budget law, why wasn't that, like, the finance director,
So they're actually succeeding in overachieving what their budget loss was. Think about that. That's about the only.
Wind that one
Got to
back.
wind that one back a bit. But that's about the only success that they can claim right now.
Well, I wanted to ask before we get out of here too, because and hopefully we'll have a second part to this, because I'm hoping, and we'll get to that here in a second. And you can find this on the FOIA Rocky Mount page, and I encourage anybody listening, go find it on Facebook. It's FOIA Rocky Mount, Virginia. And
Just Rocky Mount.
Just Rocky Mount. Okay, and you can get a lot of these documents on here that have been shared, that have been showed, and one that interests me the most was there was a comparison to about 7 towns that are comparable to Rocky Mount. And of course, our assistant town manager I think our assistant town manager is making more than some of the town managers from these places. We are
equivalent towns.
We are the smallest in population, yet there are other localities that don't even have an assistant town manager. So I'm just kind of looking for the justification why we need 2 people when other towns bigger are managing with just one.
And they throw all their workload on a paid,
especially one that allegedly doesn't even live
party.
here. I'm just trying to figure out the justification for all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, we are not knocking the harvester by any stretch in this show. This is all about the administration, and the game's up.
Yeah.
So have you heard anything about the justification for why we have assistant town manager when comparable towns don't have one or make
No, the position should be budgeted out. There shouldn't be an assistant town manager. The town manager could actually work. And then to follow on that, this town does not need a captain of the police, right? Just less than 2 years ago, in a single meeting, the town council heard a proposal to switch from a 2 lieutenant system to a 1 captain system. It was going to save $22,000 a year, and town council just ate it up, and they just rubber stamped that one through. And in less than 2 years, now we have a chief of police making over $100,000, a captain of police making what the chief of police used to make, $93,000 or something like that, 2 lieutenants making more than the lieutenants before. So now the town is spending in excess of over $100,000 more than it does not need a captain of police. Let him go. He was a problem child before. Let him go.
And now, who is the one that are approving all these raises and hikes in pay?
So effectively, the town manager, and
he's incentivized to increase the pay for everybody else, because the higher he raises everybody else, the more money he makes. So his isn't technically a base salary. He's making more money.
Exactly. And on the employment agreements, you have the one for the former town manager where he had to go and get a performance review from the town council. And they're not going to look at him and say, you don't deserve anything, even though he didn't.
So it's essentially like
the next guy comes in and he gets, his clause is hilarious.
So it's essentially like me saying, okay, we have us 3 on here to the show tonight, and Bryan, generously provided us with, a few drinks tonight and all of our food. But it would basically be saying
wings.
The more people we have in here, the more food and alcohol he's going to bring, even though he has no incentive to do so whatsoever. It's just, it's.
I'm waiting for Elon Musk to show up.
Oh, Lord. So.
It's a classic case of corruption.
I know it's up online. Salary.
I can pull it up right here.
Here you go. Right, salary. The town agrees to pay the manager for his services for the period of employment beginning May 1, 2021 at a rate of $140,000 annually, payable in installments at the same time as other employees of the town. Thereafter, unless the town council indicates otherwise, pay adjustments shall be governed by the same pay increase conditions as all other town employees. This agreement must be automatically amended to reflect any salary adjustments that are provided or required by the town's compensation policies. the town agrees to increase the compensation each year by at least the average across-the-board increase, step, cost of living, etc., granted to other employees of the town. So
The more money he spends, the more money he makes.
I'm telling you, you need a $10,000 raise. You
Yes,
need
I
a
do.
$10,000
Yes,
raise.
I
It's
do.
like Oprah. Everybody gets a $10,000.
We all get
raise.
cars, and
And I'm the one granting it, but then I'm getting the average back. So actually, you need a $20,000 raise.
it's.
Oh yeah.
All
I
right.
mean, anyway,
Okay.
cracks me up.
Let's find a good stopping point right there. One thing I do want to go into before we completely get out of here is what haven't we touched on yet, so people will be able to tune in next week and understand what they're going to be talking about. What other things can we still touch on?
We should probably touch on the shower incident with Blackberry Smoke. We should probably touch on Snapped Part 1, John Boynton, Living the Dream. I think we still could uncover some stuff with the Harvester Performance Center project. Did we talk?
I think we might be surprised with some of the
And I think the comments.
the comments and information that you will receive.
Yes, and I know there's a lot of people, and I asked for this on the Facebook page. I said, any questions or comments or anything you'd like to know about? And we're not going to get to those tonight because we went over quite a bit, and I think there's going to be more questions now, so we're going to tie them all in together. There's a couple other things with the CTE Center. I know that's not your expertise, but I do think it's important to talk about before this election comes up, just so the taxpayers have a good idea. Not just Rocky Mount, we're talking Franklin County. The CTE Center, we're going to be talking a lot about that, about why it wasn't rezoned or why it wasn't even brought to the attention of the town until after the fact. There's a lot going on with that. We won't go into that a lot, but I think it's something very important that we should bring up while we have, the opportunity to do it. So the next episode we're going to hopefully record at the beginning of the next week and release. We'll talk about some of these things right here that Bryan just mentioned. We're going to go through your comments and questions, so please go onto the page and under this show when we release it, whatever questions you have, or email those questions. If you don't want it to be public, you want it to be private, we can ask those questions anonymously, because I know we have quite a few. And some of the questions that people have brought up here were already answered as well. Mm-hmm. So don't think that we ignored you. But this is a good opportunity for the town to really engage and to really ask some questions before, the election comes up in a couple of weeks.
Let's address it before that, because I think they're all very relevant.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about some of the things Bryan had just mentioned. There's a few other things we can go into. Want to go into the CTE Center. I'm going to do a little bit more research on that before we bring it up. And I might send you the email. I don't know how much you know about this, but if you get the email that I received and sent Simon, you can kind of look into it a little bit and kind of understand to wherever we're going to be coming from for this, because I think that's very important as well.
Little teaser, please.
Okay, so the old Moducraft building over there right off State Street. Okay, it's a big, huge building ready to go. We've been apparently trying to get a CTE center for the high school here for quite some time now, a place to go over there and do things that school should really be focusing on. And, from what I've gathered from the email that I've got and received, basically they tried to rezone it to turn it into something like that. And it was going to be probably roughly a $3.5 million purchase. And they basically tabled it and didn't really talk much about it. And the new construction on something like this was going to be upwards. I saw estimates somewhere between $70 to $100 million, and they would have been able to take care of this for maybe $10 to $12 million. So the town allegedly just tabled it and ignored it and didn't talk about it, and the Board of Supervisors essentially just let it go. And that's kind of where we're sitting at right now.
Under the rug it goes.
Yeah, it's something for the public school system, and the town wouldn't rezone it. And now we've, I think, lost the opportunity to purchase it and turn it into the CTE Center, which, would have been just something, just zoning issues and zoning things to that nature.
No, there's a lot more to that story. And I think the town council will probably cost the county millions of dollars because of that non-rezoning. And it's sad because there's at least one council member with kids in school. There's another one who has a kid that's getting, a couple of years from now will be in school. But you could spend $50 million or maybe $40 million or whatever to do the CTE building at the Moducraft, or you can spend $100 million for a new building by the high school. It is probably not going to be welcome to have an extra $50 million of unnecessary dollars in a bond, voted on, because that bond could fail.
Yes.
And if we want to keep the kids here in Rocky Mountain, Franklin County, you need to improve the educational opportunities. I think the traditional college and career trajectory is probably not going to be the model of the future. And something like CTE is a massive improvement and will help keep high-paying jobs here in Rocky Mountain, Franklin County.
I don't think we're in any disagreement there at all.
But the council, for whatever reason, thumbed its nose at the Board of Supervisors. And I hope if there's a good election that Moducraft building that could be resurrected, it would save the county tens of millions of dollars.
Yes.
And just so we're all clear, Rocky Mount sits inside of the county, so it would save the citizens of Rocky Mount money too.
Yeah, I mean, we're all tied in here together. I mean,
no, but let's table it. No, let's table it.
I agree.
Yeah, we're not a city here. So Roanoke County, Roanoke City are completely two different entities. That's not the case here. So, and I just want to clarify for everybody out here listening. Look, once again, if you're just a town employee here that's just going to work every day and doing your job, we're not calling you out. Because I know there's a lot of people that just show up to their job every single day, do a phenomenal job. We're talking about, just everyday employees, of the harvester, the everyday police officers. This has nothing to do with you, and we appreciate everything that you do. Do not take this as a knock on you, but
great statement.
What we're doing here is hopefully going to make your lives a lot better. It's going to make the town citizens' lives a lot better. It's going to free up quite a bit of money, and that's why we're calling this stuff out. It has nothing to do with you, so please don't take it personally. We're not speaking about you. We're speaking about the management who has proven time and time again that they are either inept or corrupt, and both are unexcusable. And once again, we'll throw out an invite if there's anybody out there that we've mentioned here tonight that would like to come on the show and put their side of the story up. Feel free. You know how to reach out to us. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram, Twitter, anywhere we're at. Contact us. We'll let you on here, and you can tell your side of the story. And I know all this is a bit esoteric, and it's really hard to follow. But hopefully, whatever questions you do have, maybe we can try and clear it up and make things a little bit easier on the next show, which I'm hoping we can just do next week and get it out. Because I think the following week we're trying to have a candidate forum for the town council members that are running, that want to come on here and get a little bit of extra time to actually let us know what their intentions are. So once again, that's an open invite to everybody out there, except for the one who's running. You know who you are because you disrespected people on my page. I'm not even gonna mention your name. But hey, even if you want to come on here, by all means, you know what? You're free to come on here too. Just expect quite a bit more pushback than the rest of them will get for your comments. So, yeah,
I believe that's called accountability.
It is. Before we get out of here, once again, Rocky Mount Burger Company, 467 Franklin Street in Rocky Mount. Go support him. Bryan, he has done an awful lot of work here, and for the benefit of this town. And, for a lot of people to harp on people coming into this town that aren't from here, and they make that such a big deal about who gets what and how. He's doing this for you all. He's doing this for the town. He's doing this for the citizens to make sure they don't continue to get screwed under the table. So go by there. And keep a lookout on the early end too, because you're always having
the vision of success.
Yes,
let's support it.
The early end is frequently having musical acts down there too, and you're covered shed, correct?
Yeah, we've had the works, mended fences.
Yeah, a lot of good music going on over there. So if you don't want to go support the Harvester, we want you to support the Harvester, but if you don't want to go over there and you want to go across the street, there's plenty of acts going on there.
But you want to support the Harvester. They just need to have shows.
If you want to show your
book
your
an act and we'll support it.
If you want to show your dissidence, and voting with your dollar, go support Bryan. Go over there to the Rocky Mount Burger Company. They always have live music there quite frequently, so pay attention to that. They're on Facebook and all that kind of stuff too. As far as we're concerned, like I said, look us up on Patreon if you want to get some of these old episodes we haven't had a chance to release yet. And gentlemen, I just want to say I appreciate your time tonight. Bryan, thank you so very much for all your information here. your entire booklet here full of documents.
It's not a booklet.
It's a tree.
And for your hospitality tonight, for feeding us and feeding my family, we certainly appreciate it. And you and your business will always be a part of my wife and I, because we did get married at the early end, like so many other people have around here. And we always take our kids down to see Santa Claus every single year, so that's always very cool for the town. So I always keep that in mind with the holidays coming up around the corner. If you want to go see Santa, take your kids there. That's always taking place, and your employees are always phenomenal as well. So I just wanted to say that every time you go into the burger company or the early end, I know Tony over there. They're always very professional. They're always very engaging, and I can appreciate that as somebody who frequents the businesses very often.
I'm very blessed with great employees.
That's great to hear.
Absolutely.
That's going to be your path to success.
It is.
It really is.
It is. I hope to provide them the tools to enable their success, and but it is awesome to have a great team that I have.
When you're talking about tools, the only tool you need right now is an elevator to get your half tree off the first floor.
We can just throw it out the window here if we need to.
That's right. Isn't there a chute? I just throw it out.
Yeah. So once again, send us your questions. Email me, private message me, whatever you have to do. We'll get them out there the next go round. Listen to this. Try and keep up. I know it's a little difficult, but hopefully we'll share a couple of these documents so you understand what we're saying. The little flow chart is one. You can actually see that on the FOIA Rocky Mount page.
It should be there.
You can see that, and we'll try and I will upload that as well on my end. So as you're listening, you kind of look at that and then just see the convoluted mess that is all just going into one facility.
Ask questions. I would love for somebody on council to explain that chart to me.
Anybody. It doesn't have to be council, mayor.
You're going to be waiting a long time.
So,
yeah. I know. I think it's important that somebody on council be able to actually explain it. Lucy.
So for everybody else here, the Appalachian Podcast.